Open to anyone, all around the world.
Oh my God!
The Chess.com Global Championship offers the dream of playing against the best. And hey, have we mentioned there's also $1 million at stake?
The total pot is $1 million.
No, that is not a typo. The prizes are unbelievably generous.
We began with thousands of players. Now only dozens remain.
He's gonna make it through to the next phase. He secured himself a big place in the knockouts.
The CGC knockout phase has arrived. There are those who played their way in, and some are here thanks to their well-earned reputations. No matter who you are, things are about to get very, very real.
Oh, me! It's me!
What?
A trip to the CGC finals and a clean shot at the largest first-place prize of the year. My friends, it's the CGC round of 64. Who will take the next step to Toronto?
Two, one.
Open. My friend, is the Chess.com Global Chess Championship here with Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky. I'm hyped. I'm pumped. Watched earlier today, Vladimir Kramnik moving on. Danya, throw to you. How hyped are you that we're here in the round of 64?
Very, very hyped, Danny. It's an honor to be here. I have the best job in the world. It's the inaugural day of the Chess.com Global Championship knockout phase. And it's such a great feeling. We have so much exciting chess to be played. And I'm just super happy to be here with you.
The feeling is mutual. We hope that everyone is excited to be here. Of course, we have a lot to break down and preview to tee up for you what you'll be watching for the next few hours. And so on that note, as I already kind of spoiled the headline, I was just watching as a fan earlier, watching Kramnik move on and all the other exciting matchups. But let's remind everybody of what is about to happen here. What is the round of 64? What is the format now that we are in the CGC knockout phase? And on that note, let's dive right in, Donnie. It's 64 players, and as the hype video said, 32 of them were invited, 32 of them qualified. You had the pleasure of commentating on a lot of those qualifiers, people getting seeded into those groups that we've sort of defined by the top seeds. So as you talk about the field and how we got here and who was invited, what sticks out to you? What are you most excited about now that we are finally here in the knockout stage?
Well, I'm most excited, Danny, about the field. A field like this, featuring players from so many generations, featuring 5 FIDE World Champions, 6 FIDE World Champion challengers, just all around, all top grandmasters, as well as players from different generations. I think it's safe to say that this is the most epic field of players ever assembled in any event, online or over the board. And we have so many mouthwatering matchups that emerge as a result. So watching all of that unfold and watching this field settle into the amazing field of 64 that we have now has just been such an interesting process.
Yeah, it's been awesome, and I think it's going to continue to deliver as we figure out over the next month who will be punching their ticket to Toronto, Canada for the live finals. But that's one big prize awaiting them. Let's talk about the other prizes that are available. The $1 million is now very, very real. As we've been talking about, I saw you send the hype video. That is not a typo. $200,000 will go to the winner of this tournament, which, if my facts are correct, Danya, is going to be the largest first place prize payout of the entire calendar year.
Yeah, if you told me 5 years ago, hey, there's going to be an online tournament with a prize of $200,000, I would have laughed you out of the room. And yet here we see it. And it's not just the $200K for the winner of the entire thing. Look at the runner-up. There is a minimum prize of $5,000, even for the players who are unfortunate enough to lose their first round matchup. So there's so much at stake. There's something in it for absolutely everybody. And, you know, the players, they're motivated. They're going to be putting their blood, sweat, and tears on the line every single one of these games.
And speaking of motivated players, we're probably moments away from gameplay, but I think we still have some time to maybe talk about the players that you just mentioned, who will be throwing down in the next few minutes. Let's bring up the upcoming matchups for what Danya and I will be calling for the remainder of the day. As we look at these different groups, Danya, so many big names stick out. Alexeenko, of course, Sevian, one of the young Americans making his debut versus Rasmus Svane. Of course, you have Esipenko coming up later, Vallejo Pawns. But I want to circle the one right in the middle, because you and I talked about this in our preview, that in that Group A, everyone thinks of Hikaru for many reasons as the big favorite. But I think Lequang Liem and Eric Hansen are two people you have to have circled as dark horses to come out of Group A. So whoever wins that matchup may ultimately be dancing in the final of Group A versus Hikaru. What do you think?
Yeah, and Lequang Liem, he's an incredibly experienced player. He's a former World Blitz champion, if memory serves me right. And Eric Hansen, the players who might not be seated at the top, they are going to be hungry to deliver upsets. We saw that, Danny, this morning. We saw Min Lee coming within a centimeter of upsetting none other than Ding Liren. So the lower-rated players are going to be hungry to prove themselves. And Eric Hansen, he's got a way of stepping up to big occasions. We saw that in the Fischer random qualifiers as well. He almost made his way to Reykjavik. So I'm excited to watch Eric, and I'm obviously excited to watch Lequang and all of the other sleepers that we're going to be watching today, including Jospin, who is going to try to make his presence felt as well.
Yep. Well, Lequang Liem, you mentioned, is a former World Blitz champion, for those who maybe didn't know that. And so having him circled as not just a tough opponent for the fan favorite chess bra Eric Hansen, but maybe a tough opponent to come out of Group A, that's going to be awesome. I don't know if that's one of the first matchups, but we do have, as you said, Jospin, Jose Martinez taking on Alexeenko to kick things off, along with several other super exciting matchups. The other upcoming matchups you see there before you right there, more matchups that will be in the round of 64, not necessarily what Danya and I will be covering for those checking out. But let us know in chat, who are you most excited to see today, everyone? And what's your favorite matchup of the day? I think we're going to get a lot of people who are just saying they can't wait to see whether Eric Hansen can get past Lequang Liem, given the massive popularity of the Chess Bra streaming channel. But of all the matchups, we spent a lot of time talking about that. Which other one is your favorite, Danya?
Well, of course, Eric, he's a crowd favorite, but I am very partial to the players of the older generation, Danny. I consider myself an old soul. I had the privilege of hanging out with Veselin Topalov. He taught at a camp here in Charlotte a couple of months ago. Such a charming personality, such a genius on the chessboard. I'm excited to see Veselin. I'm obviously excited to see Vishy Anand and Boris Gelfand and all of the other representatives of the older generations. I want to see who can go the farthest and who can tell those young players, hey, you still have a thing or two to learn from us. So we'll see if they can manage
versus,
that.
Boris Gelfand, that is going to be a matchup that we saw Kramnik obviously knock out Melkumian earlier today, in dominant fashion, by the way, right, with that 3-0 score. But will that continue to be a trend with the old souls, right? I'm not just an old soul, I'm also just an old man at this point. So I'm also, I think, rooting for a lot of those players we invited to join the 32 qualified players. But matchups like Noterbeck, right, reigning world rapid champion, rising superstar, versus a guy like Boris Gelfand, who once competed for the world championship title himself, those are matchups that just have to have fans just absolutely pumped to see what's going to happen there. So I think we are moments away here from the game here, waiting for cues, on things. And again, we're going to be following you, chat. Let us know again as we're moving on. Sometimes there will be games going alongside other games. Obviously, organizing a global event like this had a lot of logistics, and a huge shout out to the team who's working hard and crushing it to make sure that happens. So sometimes there's matchups running alongside each other, and of course you can go to chess.com/events and watch it yourself. Sometimes we'll be able to focus in, and Danya and I will just be able to give one particular matchup our full attention. And on that note, I think we have a liftoff here with Kirill Alexeenko taking on Jose Eduardo Martinez, also known to the fans as Jospin. And we'll be getting into that in just a moment here, everyone, because it's the CGC knockout, and things are getting underway here. So
we are underway, and the players are going to have to put aside the jitters that always come with starting a tournament like this and knowing what is at stake for them. But Jospin, he's got so much experience under his belt. An excellent performance in the first season of the Rapid Chess Championship. I mean, he just seems to be so consistent when there's a lot on the line. And he's got his work cut out for him here. He's got the black pieces in the first game. And already Kirill Alexeenko deviating away from mainstream theory, putting his bishop on e2 in a Sicilian defense, not an everyday sight.
Yeah, a delayed open Sicilian is maybe on the board. I mean, because you still have the option of playing d4, obviously, at some point if you're Alexeenko, but you chose not to do it. What are some of the practical factors behind delaying a move order in that way? Because if you get d4 and you transpose into a traditional classical Sicilian, all will be well and we'll be in a position we've seen many times. But what are some of the other plans or move order tricks up white's sleeve, Danya, for Alexeenko to play this rather than the traditional d4?
Well, on a more philosophical level, I would say that bishop e2 is consistent with a trend we've seen in the last couple of years where players just deviate very quickly away from a mainstream theory in both e4, e5 and e4, c5. They don't play the open Sicilian as much anymore. They just want to get a position, at times a quiet position where maneuvering play prevails. And I think we actually could see white playing d2, d3 here, and then positioning the bishop on e3. And this offers white the possibility of really determining how he wants to develop. It's already a pretty unconventional position, so a lot of the typical Sicilian ideas here, they don't really apply. And Jose very quickly trading off his light squared bishop. I was not expecting that, Danny. I thought he would drop his bishop back to h5.
Yeah, I wonder if his idea is to go for some sort of dragon structure, in the sense that if black can develop and control the dark squares, typically when you think of ways that we break the dragon, Danya, of course we think of the Yugoslav attack, right? We think of ways to aggressively assault the fianchettoed structure with a pawn storm, and that's not really going to be an option here for white. So I wonder if maybe something like that will be his idea, where the loss of the bishop here isn't as big of a deal when you've got such great control over the dark squares. So that's just the idea that pops into my mind. Maybe it's because I'm a recovering dragon addict. I'll just say it out loud. Hi, my name's Danny, and I am recovering from many years of being addicted to playing the dragon. But what other ideas could black have in mind for giving up the bishop pair this early?
No, you're absolutely right. Clamping down on the dark squares in the center, making d4 impossible, is definitely the primary idea. And now black has to decide where to position that dark squared bishop. There's actually three different options. There's g6, there's e6, and there was even e5. And I like g6 the most. Fianchettoing the bishop further clamps down on the d4 square. We might see the knight from f6 dropping backward to d7. Very typical move in such positions. And that might be followed up by rook b8 and a queenside pawn, a b-pawn storm, which we see so often in the closed Sicilian and in the Sicilian sidelines.
Yeah, I love it. And obviously, I'm really enjoying highlighting to keep up with your awesome analysis. This is a pretty typical idea in this sort of structure. If you're ever wondering for a plan, fans, asking yourself what direction are your pawns facing is often a cue of where you can naturally expand and gain space without too much trouble. But I also really like this move g3 from Alexeenko, because he ensures he'll get to keep the bishop and then perhaps go back to expanding. And speaking of a pawn storm, here white has the potential to build strength and eventually maybe all in with some type of assault over here. So this may not be an opposite sides of the board castle situation, Danya, but still potentially a very explosive attacking position on the board. And here comes rook b8 right on cue.
Here comes rook b8 indeed, and the reason Kirill played the move g3 is to tuck his bishop back to g2 and then push his f-pawn up to f4. But before he does that, he wants b5 to happen on his terms. He says, hey, I can't stop b5 permanently, but black is going to have to open up the A file if he still wants to play b5. And obviously, white is the one who stands to benefit from that.
Yep. Yeah. A4 played. By the way, one thing I'll just observe, of course, we've said, and we'll say again, welcome in to the 2022 Global Chess Championship, but this is a rapid event, right? So the time control is instantly time pressure in many ways. And I'm just observing that the players are playing very fast to start. We're almost to move 15, still a lot of time on the clock. I don't know that that's indicative of preparation or if the players are just playing quickly because they appreciate what's at stake on the timer. But something to keep in mind. I think for Alexeenko, it's even more important, Danya, that he stays out of time pressure just because we know what a speed demon Jospam is. But in this matchup, should this go to some sort of Armageddon blitz or rapid tiebreaker, who would you give the edge to?
Well, definitely Jose. I mean, the shorter the time control, the more the more of a beast Jose becomes. Not that he isn't a beast in classical chess, but he's totally unmatched in bullet. His speed is unbelievable. He's part of this category of players who you can't get into a time scramble against them. Michal Sarin belongs to that category as well. We saw him defeat Rauf Mamedov in the morning group of games in exactly that fashion. So Kirill has to try to outplay Jose on the board in the early middle game and avoid an all-out time scramble. You're absolutely right.
Well, I like. I mean, again, I'm biased. I've played so many of these positions as black but I feel like typically when you talk about a dragon position like this, you want to make sure you were able to expand on the queen side so that you have space, because often these pawn storms will line up with that devious and dangerous dragon bishop. So I feel like black has done a pretty good job here in the first stage of getting an equal fighting game. But the long-term advantage of the bishop pair for white, and if this position does eventually threaten to break open with f4, e5, and f5 coming, maybe long-term white still has a lot of dynamic chances. But I don't know. I'm kind of liking Jospum's chances right now, that being Jose Martinez.
Yeah, I think he's positioned his pieces in a very harmonious fashion. We see rook a to e1 from Kirill. So I think it's very, very clear what his subsequent moves are going to be. He's going to drop his bishop back to g2. Then he's going to push his pawn to f4. And he's going to try to combine kingside attack with central pressure, maybe g4. And that knight from d1 is eventually going to have to find a suitable home. But for the time being, it's happy just chilling on d1.
Yeah. It's funny in these positions because, and maybe this is just me asking for a friend, what would you do in a position where you've gained space and it looks almost as pretty as it can possibly look, right? Like, how does black improve from here? If you push further, white will counter and just keep control of the center. There's usually not a safe way to do anything else without problems starting to occur when you open the board for a bishop pair. So if you were someone who played a lot of these positions as black in your career, again, maybe not, maybe me, maybe someone else, what is black supposed to do now?
Yeah, well, this move knight f6 to d7, I think can be seriously considered. And I mean, you need to attack on the queen side. You need to attack on the area of the board where you have a predominance. So maybe knight d7, then put the other knight on d4, and I'll get to this move in a second, but if that happens, you might also try to push the b pawn up to b3 and create a stronghold on the c2 square.
Okay, so knight d7 come in here, eventually maybe b3. Obviously, black switched back to the a file once the rook on b8 had kind of done its job to expand. It's time to grab the open file. So, okay, it all makes sense. I'm feeling better and better about the next time I play this position as black.
Yeah, and there's that f4 move by white. Visually, black's position looks very, very pretty. And all of the pieces are on the right squares. You've pressed all the right buttons. But now white's the one with a clearer plan. G4, F5. And the position resembles a closed Sicilian. You would never guess that it emerged out of an early bishop b2. I mean, white's bishop is now on g2. And the other idea, Danny, that I wanted to point out is bishop e3 drops down to f2, paving the way for the white knight to reach the center with knight e3. Of course, you have to take care of the b2 pawn, but another idea to consider.
I love it. And you're right. This is very much a close Sicilian. Shout out to our buddy and co-commentator, Robert Hess, who had the early call this morning. The true debut of day one for the Chess.com Global Chess Championship was earlier today with Grandmasters Robert Hess and Grandmaster Robert Hess and International Master Lawrence Trent. Notice I almost said Grandmasters and gave Trent the GM title. LOL. That would never happen.
How dare you, Danny? I would never do the same thing to you. I would never call you a Grandmaster by accident.
Wow. As usual, I'm going to continue to roll with the backhanded compliments that I think I'm receiving. Okay. But no, seriously, Robert played a lot of close Sicilians back when he was busy playing dubious openings in his career. But jokes aside, this is a very, very nice, solid space advantage. When white gets g4, you have so many options. You highlighted f5. You also have ideas of g5, h4, and h5. And if you can keep a grip on the position, white is sort of having a free hand on the king side. So there's a lot of potential here for white. Despite that eval bar being slightly tilted toward black's favor, everyone, don't let it fool you. This position is a very, very double-edged one, still very much a 3-result game on the board.
Yeah, for sure. And queen c7 is a very nice move to take the sting out of the move e5. And, if white's not careful, the problem with playing g4 followed by f5 is that the d7 knight could access the e5 square. You're going to weaken a lot of these dark squares in the center. And that's a problem that doesn't have a clear solution. White can't control those squares in any other way.
Right. Does Black ever consider, so a typical thematic idea for Black in the close Sicilian is once g4 is committed, to strike with f5, because at that point you stop the entire pawn storm in its tracks. And often if this pawn in particular stays stuck, then that bishop on e3 also never joins the attack with some sort of battery over here that people are used to seeing. So is that an idea that we might see for Black, or in this particular case, is that too risky to the light squares?
Yeah, the light squares would really concern me. If you had a light squared bishop, then absolutely f7, f5, a totally viable way of slowing down White's kingside pawn storm. But in the absence of it, I think you basically just let stuff unroll on the kingside. You let White play g4 and f5, and you say, come at me. I've got the bishop on g7 to defend my king. And the problem with the knight on d1, Danny, is an underlying issue in White's position that is going to greatly damage White's ability to attack on the king side. And I think that's why Kirill played c3. He wants to play bishop f2 and knight e3, and he doesn't want that b2 pawn to be hanging as a result.
Yeah, it's a great point. Of course, the risk of c3 is that when the b file opens up, Black is only going to continue to bring the heat on this side of the board. It's hard when you don't have an exact concrete knockout blow, but Black will definitely, if given time, prepare something, whether it's the rooks getting active and doubled, whether it's the knights trying to hop into squares. So this is the drawback of a move like c3, is it guards b2 and over controls d4, but it's only opening lines for Black to eventually get some sort of chances. So okay, so we continue here. I'm excited. I don't know what else to say. I'm excited. Sometimes I just think of something exciting to say, and that's all I can say. A lot of chess left to be played here, Daniel.
Everything you say is incredibly exciting. It's so mesmerizing. I don't know. I have nothing to respond with. It's the level of what I say is so much more mundane and boring. But this is great. I mean, I love the feeling of a tournament just beginning. Not when I'm playing.
Yep.
When I'm playing, then I love the feeling of the tournament ending. But when I'm commentating, that feeling that we still have so much chess to be played, and this is just like the first batch of games, it's such a heartwarming sensation. And Rook A2, by the way, by Jose, as he continues to wind his tentacles around White's queenside, the situation beginning to look quite unpleasant for Kirill.
Yeah, my initial response, Danya, was surprised when I saw c takes b4 from Kirill, but now that I think about it, it makes sense, right? Because when Rook b2 came in, the pawn on b2 was pinned to the queen, which meant that b takes c3 was a real threat, and so Black forces White's hand, if you will, to take here. But this is getting much better for Black, I think, with every move, and this pawn is now a true target.
Yeah, Kirill has not gotten the engine started on the king side at all. He hasn't pushed a single one of his pawns. He hasn't managed to play g4. He's still putting his clothes on in the morning, and Jose is already, conquering the world on the queen side. There
you go. I've never heard it like that. But yeah, still getting dressed, and the other guy's already at work. Here comes d2 as a target for the rook and the bishop, but also d3 shouldn't be forgotten either, because even if it's protected now, it definitely makes it a lot harder for White to leave and get aggressive if d3 is a constant sore thumb here. I'm liking Jose Martinez's position, though he is down 2 minutes on the clock. So give Alexeenko some credit from that perspective, right?
Yeah, Kirill has done a good job on the clock thus far, but 7.5 minutes is an eternity for someone like Jose. Really, I wouldn't be worried about his clock unless he drops below 3 minutes. But okay, he's got a nice position visually, but how is he going to continue tightening the screws, right? That's always a problem in these types of positions where positionally you're better, but how do you actually attack stuff? I'm thinking maybe knight d7 to b8 to c6 to d4 is an interesting maneuver. Maybe bring the other knight to d4, but the downside of moving the knight away from b4 is that you yield the d5 square. You don't want to give White any unnecessary activity.
Right. All right, well, okay. Quick reminder, and yes, we have seen questions in chat. There are other games going on. Grandmaster Lequang Liem is taking on Grandmaster Eric Hansen. Sam Sevian is taking on Rasmus Svane. You can follow these games at chess.com/events if you ever feel that we're not focused where you want us. But I think on that note, I think, Donnie, I think we might want to bounce over and check out the action between Lekwang Liem and Eric Hansen. You down for that?
I'm not Eric and Lekwang. Can we look at somebody who actually can play decent?
Maybe the
chess once
marquee
in a while?
matchup of the round right now. Of course, we spent a lot of time deeply analyzing that close Sicilian. Eat your heart out if you happen to be someone who plays either of those positions, that position for either side. But okay, let's jump here and see what's going on with the former World Blitz champion in Lekwang Liem versus the chess bra Eric Hansen. A decent position for Eric on the board. First sight, it looks like it was some sort of Catalan or G3 Queen's Gambit. Right now, there's a threat to maybe eliminate Black's bishop pair that I don't think Eric wants. Oh, never mind. He says it's okay as long as I get to improve my knight. Here we go.
Exactly. He wants it on his terms. And after knight takes c5, knight takes c5, White has a hard time defending the e4 pawn without making further weaknesses in his position, because you definitely don't want to play f3. Somewhere Ben Feingold is cringing. You definitely don't want to play e5 and weaken the d5 square. Black is better. I mean, Eric is flat out better out of the opening. White's got issues all around the board. The bishop on c1 is buried. The pawn on e4 is weak. And there's e5 by Lekwang, but he's not doing this out of desire. He's doing this out of necessity to open up some breathing room for his pieces.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. I think the other thing to highlight is that, speaking of the pieces, the queenside pieces still need to get in the game. And the question of these types of structures is, can the person with the lead in development, that being Black here, get something more positionally concrete before the position gets equal? And that's my worry for Eric, having that tiny advantage. Danya is already kind of slipping away because positionally, the structure is completely symmetrical, right? Neither side really has a long-term positional weakness. So if Black doesn't get something right now, and you see he's trying to get an initiative, poking at the tender, undefended knight on d3, potentially maybe going to move this knight and use the d-file, but if you don't get anything right now, often these positions just go toward dead equality, right?
Yeah, that's where, someone like Magnus Carlsen really proves themselves. They seem to make it easy in positions like these, but in reality, the vast majority of games where you have a small endgame advantage still end in a draw. I think Lekwang should be able to hold his own here, but I actually think this is very unpleasant, Danny. At least the next couple of moves are going to be pretty difficult. Maybe rook d1, maybe bishop g5. He's got to find a way to get the rest of his pieces out. The rook on a1, he needs to try to position on c1, and the other rook maybe on d1. And if he can do all of that, then he'll have most of the bases covered.
A3 is such a high-class move, right? It's one of those moves that, despite all the fears and the pony looking, tender, and maybe there's a discovered attack, just sort of says, you know what? I've calculated it. There are no real threats here. I'm going to prevent Black from getting any more of a bind on the queen side. I'll play bishop g5 next. I'll bring my rooks into the game. And I think that unless there's some sort of tactic that he missed, but I think the eval bar would be screaming at us if that was the case, I think that Lekwang will probably start to solve some of his problems with the coming moves.
Yeah, bishop g5 is important. Maybe it was worth it for Eric to think about h6, but instead he decides to bring his own rook into the game. Okay, rook d1 also makes a lot of sense, protecting the knight. And I think the stage is set for White to play bishop g5 and rook ac1. And, you could start thinking about signing the peace agreement if that happens.
Yep. Okay, well, whether Eric maybe had something earlier or not, I don't think that if you asked him that, before the match and said getting a draw with Black against a former World Blitz champion, taking your chance with the white pieces next, I think he would have signed up for that. And probably he's still going to be happy with the fact that he equalized relatively easily with the second move and isn't down on the clock either, which we know that Eric, as anyone knows who's been following the chess ball for a long time, Eric can get himself into time pressure from time to time, right? Sometimes that can be his Achilles heel, and he definitely doesn't want that to be the case today.
No, he has to watch his clock. He can't take those 7-8 minute thinks that he's known to take sometimes. But I always say this, but in a longer match, if you're the underdog, you want to adopt the sports advice of making it shorter. Coaches always say, stick around till the fourth quarter, make the game short, because anything can happen in a short period of time. Anybody can hit a 3-pointer at a big time. Same with this match. play solid the first 3 games, Eric would be more than happy with 3 draws and for everything to come down to 1 game because of the inherent volatility that comes with just playing 1 game of chess.
Yep. Well, especially when you're the underdog, that's how you feel, right? To speak from let's say the team that's favored, to use your NBA analogy, you're hoping to already be up by double digits when the fourth quarter comes. Because if a team can stick around, you give them a chance with just a few minutes on the clock. I think Lequang Liem, in most people's eyes, is probably the favorite here, right? In this match versus Eric. Maybe he would disagree, but so Lequang would like to rebound from this bad opening. Maybe not bad, maybe bad's a strong word, but he would really like to figure out a way to grind Eric down here in this game. Still a lot to be played here. There's one other game going on in this this start to our second set of games here on the first day of the Chess.com Global Championship knockout portion. If you missed it, we've already been doing this thing for almost 5 hours. Grandmaster Robert Hess and International Master Lawrence Trent had the call, but now Danya and I are here. And let's go check out what's going on between Sam Sevian and Rasmus Svane. The only matchup we haven't had a chance to peek at. Looking kind of spicy. What happened here? This was what was this? This is an opening that...
Italian?
Let's see. It was just a double king bone game. Yeah, just a 4 knights or some sort of Gioco piano.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. Pawns on e4 and e5, but ooh, Rasmus is a great position here. The a5 pawn right now is hanging. White's got superior control of the d file, and I'm a big fan of heavy piece endgames. I think they're always very interesting. When you have no minor pieces to rely on, you need to squeeze the most juice out of all of your heavy pieces. And right now, White's the one squeezing all of that juice. Rasmus has good winning chances here, I think.
I agree. It's Sevian, right? It's Sevian with the white pieces, yeah. And we talk about that a lot. But as you said, when there's no minor pieces, there's no tactical distractions on the board. It all comes down to little things like a single open file. And White is holding all the cards. An open file can mean the first person to get on the 7th rank, which means the first person to get threats against all the pawns. This is a position that is much harder to play black than first meets the eye if White can start to execute. I'm looking at things like rook d7 and queen c4, Danya, as maybe a follow-up here. What other ways can White approach this?
Yeah, and I apologize. Of course, Sevian has the white pieces here. Queen c4, absolutely. Rook d3, rook f3, maybe. Definitely should consider rook d5 to d7. That c7 pawn, that is, I would say, the near-term target. I would probably consider starting with rook d7, but my guess is that black will respond with rook e7. And it's also very easy to fritter away what advantage you have, because if you don't get to the c-pawn, the structure is still symmetrical. Sevian has to act very decisively here. There's rook d7. It's on the board. I think we're going to see rook e7, queen c4.
If rook e7, queen c4, in fact, we already have one of those moves on the board. The trade on d7 can be met by then c5 for black to hold on to the pawn. It just feels super scary, even if the eval bar says White's advantage is tiny. It feels super uncomfortable to be black there.
No, it definitely does. The reason the eval bar might be so calm about it is maybe some sort of concrete resource that stabilizes the situation. After queen c4, maybe you're just supposed to take on d7 and then play c6 and basically say, yeah, you've got the d file, but what are you going to do about it? Like, there's nothing on the d file.
C6 is a much better move than my c5. Maybe we'll quickly analyze that if we can bring up the board. We'll show that if queen to c4, rook d7 takes. I just want to see if Danya's analysis is what the engine ordered. Indeed, you are correct, Danya.
Nice.
The live position there, showing a game we were first looking at between Alexeenko and Jose Martinez. We'll check back on that close Sicilian in a minute. But this position here, really instructive from Danya to point out the difference between c6 and my move c5 is that it doesn't give up the d5 square, where White then really holds a grip to all potential access points. If there's only one open file, it's like commodities. Supply and demand governs the position, and if you control it, you're in control. But this is a really key defensive setup for black.
Yeah, and you might say, well, doesn't White have queen d3 here, and I still control the d file? Yeah, you do, but the effect of the queen isn't the same. When it's on d3, black can play queen f6 to f4 and threaten to infiltrate c1, and I think black gets just enough counterplay there to hold the draw.
I love this move. Queen to F4 just to show.
You know who doesn't
not
love
to
this
say that-
move?
Who? The computer?
The Evo bar.
Well, I still love it. I wanted to show the instructive idea of the bailout draw, but there's clearly something here for white. Probably something like rook d8 check first. Or white can
rook
actually maybe
d8?
just stop the draw with g3 first.
Yeah, then I was thinking queen c1 takes b2. But I guess then the black king is somewhat abandoned, and maybe white has some way to wind his tentacles around black's king. Not sure. I mean, queen d6, but not sure.
Queen d6, maybe queen f3. There's also crazy ideas of, and I just turned on the engine to check it, and I'll turn off, but this sack and then check here I think is the key idea, which of course, that's nutty. But that's the idea.
Whoa.
Just wanted to make sure that we answered the question. In a position that looks like black is winning, and every human being is like, why does the eval bar say that? This would be a crazy way for the game to go if white is able to pick up material and ultimately maybe better in the queen ending. So, okay, not sure that's going to occur. What we now have on the board is rook d7 after a trade, and only 2 minutes for Svane, almost 2.5 minutes for Sevian.
Yeah, I mean, if Rasmus gets any further down the clock, his defensive resilience might have been in Svane.
Okay, first, who won the bet, chat? That we're about, what are we at? We're about 30 minutes in, and we've had our first cringeworthy pun by Danya of the day. There are still side bets going for when my first awkward dad joke makes it in, but not today, Junior. Okay. We continue.
That was it. I see.
There you go. Thank you. We made it to 30. Whoever had that bet going, the prop bet, all bookkeepers in Vegas go wild. Okay, welcome in everybody. The Global Championship rolls on. Let us remind you that if you don't like which game we're covering, you can go to chess.com/events and choose your own adventure. Always a friendly reminder, because it is hard at times to keep up with all the action. So I think this one might be the most likely to deliver us a decisive result right now. Although if we want to go full merry-go-round, we can quickly jump back to the game between Alexeenko as white versus Jose Eduardo Martinez, more commonly known as Jospum to the fans online. This position has been a good one for black for most of the game, and it looks like Jospum is probably playing for 2 results in this endgame, given the well-coordinated pieces and the weak b-pawn, Danya.
Yeah, notice that white still has not managed to push his g-pawn. So white never got out of the gates. And of course, now we're not even talking about a king-side attack because the queens are off the board. The pawn on b2 remains a massive target. And the big question is when black wants to drop the knight away from b4. By the way, knight b to d3, you might say, oh, there's a fork. The problem is that doesn't work. Bishop takes d3, and the rook on f4 is free to roam about the cabinet. You can give a check on g4. You can take on f7. So knight b to c6 should definitely be considered here by Jose, as he burns his last remaining seconds trying to find a way here to keep the foot on the gas pedal. He's down to 1.5 minutes, though, and absolutely anything can happen in these time scramble situations. I would say all 3 results are possible here. I've seen people overpress in these kinds of positions.
I totally agree, although I'll say that because Martinez is his faith in himself, Jospum believes he can win any time scramble against anybody, and for good reason. We've seen him do it. I think he's being smart, Danya, in that he understands this is a big moment. It's a critical position that he wants to play well. I actually really love this move, e6. It holds the d5 square so that this knight is more free to move, and then maybe the b2 pawn can be weak. Although, okay, the drawback instantly spotted by Alexeenko is that if you push the e-pawn, pawns don't move backward, and now d6. I trade my b2 pawn for your target on the d file.
Yeah, he sniffed that out immediately, but rook b6 is a nice defensive move, and you've got no way to pile on the pressure. If you play knight c3 to a4, the rook can just slide over to c6. Oh, and there's that g4 move about 15 or 20 moves after he wanted to play it. Also, Danny, not to be forgotten, the h pawn is a passer. It's a passed pawn. It's an outside passer. Black can't fall asleep on it.
I was just about to highlight that. You're a wizard, Harry. Use the H file and become a real boy. Am I mixing up my pop culture there? I don't even know. Pinocchio's on the brain because Disney can't think of anything better to do than remake things. Don't sue us, Disney. All right, knight b3 is played. Rook going to move. And then the question is, does black have a way Oh, I actually love this knight journey. You're coming around to c5, perhaps a more effective square to hit the e4 pawn and stay out of the way of the rooks on the b file.
Ooh, and look at rook d1, knight c5, rook dd2, and rook b3. Danny threatening rook takes c3 and knight takes e4. That might be a big problem for white.
Okay, we have a big problem here as commentators, Danya, because there are so many games getting close. And by the way, we actually missed the final moment. Sam Sevian did indeed knock out Rasmus Svane. Apparently his defense was in Svane, as you said. But there's also the game between Lequang Liem and Eric Hansen, with Hansen now under 20 seconds. I think we're going to flip over to that board. Again, keep reminding the fans, check out the games at chess.com/events. This is the excitement of the knockout stage. Lequang Liem looks to have
Eric.
This one got away from the chess bro.
He's down a pawn on the queen side. He's got nothing remains of his former glory of the major pieces that have all been traded. He's got the d5 square, but that might be the only thing he can hang his hat on. a4, though, that might have been a little hasty.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know. Knight c3.
Still a super tough position, though, for Eric, now under 10 seconds.
Yeah, king c7. He can still try to hold on here.
Remember the time control, everyone. It is a 2-second increment. 15 minutes was the starting time. The players get 2 seconds added with every move. So as scary as this is, the players can still make a lot of good moves in these moments with a 2-second increment.
Absolutely. Yeah, but the knight is dropping back to c4. And now you're going to move your king around to the center. And I feel like, Eric, with 3 seconds here, eventually something's going to give.
1 second, 1.2. Okay, knight e3 played.
Oh! Uh-oh.
Whoa,
how do you defend the b-pawn?
B6, knight back. Danya, the problem is the king now has an entry point.
Oh, yeah, but the bishop stops.
Says, no,
there we go. King f4. Now,
what
don't
a tough
take the
position
pawn.
For Hansen.
Don't take the pawn. Knight b4 and knight d3.
Knight b4 and knight d3, and you're in trouble. What? I just blundered the knight! What? What in the world? Oh my God! Lequang Liem just blunders his knight. Eric Hansen. What was that? Was that a mouse slip? What? By the way, shout out to the team.
10 seconds.
Shout out to the team working hard to bring us that fair play view. We get to see Lequang Liem from the other side. But, Danya, we have to back up to that. The position in this moment, completely winning for the Vietnamese Grandmaster. Knight to b4 check and knight to d3. And the position is almost over because there's no way to stop the fork and e6 falls. And he just blunders. What was he thinking?
Where was he going? I mean, knight a3, knight c4 doesn't even look that appealing, to be honest. Just a complete mental collapse there for Lequang Liem. This happens so rarely, these one-move blunders. With plenty of time, 14 seconds to ponder his next move. Insane. And I'm so happy we switched over to this game. That was very prescient of you.
Wow. Well, ultimately, we maybe didn't do justice to the other game that did finish. For those who want to know the result, I'll quickly switch back over. Jose Martinez did ultimately take down Alexeenko with black. So what a great start for Jaspom. Winning on the second move means he is in control of this 4-game matchup. So we have all decisive games. If you're just tuning in here, where have you been? The 3 games that we covered: a decisive knockout victory for Sam Sevian over Rasmus Svane. We also had a comeback victory in crazy blunder fashion for Eric Hansen. And then, of course, we saw Jose Martinez take down Alexeenko. I think you and I are okay. If you asked us to predict these results coming in, maybe we would have said this, but not maybe in the way that we saw it break down, Danya.
No. And a victory with the black pieces by Eric Hansen, you could not ask for a better start. But the encouraging thing for Lequang, he's not a tilter. He'll stay calm, and he's got plenty of time, plenty of opportunities to recover and gain this point back. But what a crazy start. We're off with a bang. And Danny, I can't wait for the next 3 games.
Well, you're going to have to wait about 5 minutes, just like all the other fans tuning in. Don't go anywhere, everyone. It's the Chess.com Global Championship. It's day one of the round of 64 as we make our way on the road to Toronto over the next month. Don't go anywhere. Danya and I will be right back. We are back here. Day one of the Chess.com Global Championship continues to roll on here. Danya, probably the biggest win of that round came courtesy of the Canadian Grandmaster Eric Hansen. And so before we get into our second set of games, let's check out this player profile, remind everybody of who Eric Hansen is and how he got here to the knockout stage.
of chess streamers, Eric Hansen's Chessbrah channel on Twitch has been entertaining chess fans and beyond for over a decade. However, Hansen's day job as a content creator has also come alongside some solid performances in competitive chess. Hansen threw his proverbial hat in the ring for the CGC early in qualifying, entering play-in event number 3.
God, the decision to sacrifice an exchange by Eric, so gutsy, so cold-blooded.
Adding some drama as usual, Hansen was allegedly playing on just 2 hours of sleep. Insomnia aside, Hansen was able to reach the playoff, bagging 7.5 points out of 9.
Oh my God, and Eric's gonna win! Eric is a magician, beast, demon, fill in the blank.
In the mini-match playoff, Hansen put enough together to land a spot in the round of 64.
And Eric Hansen finally betrays the smile, and he deserves to smile. What an unbelievable effort to qualify into the knockout by Eric Hansen. That is how hard it is, ladies and gentlemen.
In the main bracket, Hansen finds himself in a group with another pretty popular chess streamer, this one named Hikaru. Hansen's chances in the knockout stage may be slim, but if anyone can make the most of the opportunity, especially when it comes to making content, Hansen can.
The prizes seemed so high, I thought I was misreading it, and I'm excited.
Yep.
Hopefully I'll see you in Toronto.
In Toronto. Speaking of great efforts by Hansen, great effort by you with all those player profiles. Can I just say big fan here? Big fan of Danya's player profiles. Hi.
Thank you, Danny. I appreciate it. I mean, I can't get over the sound of my own voice, but that warms my heart.
I know. I hate listening to replays of my own voice too. But seriously, you're doing a great job. I think people love them, and I think that people are loving the Global Championship. We got plenty more action ahead here, everybody. Shout out to the community because of all the predictions, they didn't see that coming. 66% of the community predictions in our bracket contest went with Laquan Liem, Danya, but Eric Hansen jumping out with that big win. So again, we'll keep you updated. If you didn't play along with our fantasy contests, shame on you. $100,000 in prizes. You missed your chance, but keep track of your brackets. For those of you who filled it out, you can go to our bracket page at Challenge, at the Challenge website. So here we go. Jose Martinez is off here against Kirill Alexeenko now with the white pieces. And the other games will also be getting underway soon too, Danya.
Yeah, we have a Rui Lopez in this game with Alexeenko setting up a Marshall gambit, refraining from pushing his pawn to d6. He wants to play d5 in one fell swoop. And what a start for Jose, winning with the black pieces. Now he's got the luxury, Danny, of playing solidly with the white pieces. He's more or less fine with the draw here. But if he can strike another blow, if he can go up 2-0, coming back with 2 on-demand wins is virtually impossible. So a lot on the line in this game for Kirill.
Yep. No, you're right. I mean, it's not mathematically a must-win because these are 4-game matches. For those just tuning in and don't know the format, these are 4-game matches with the 15+2 time control. Should we be tied after the 4 games, we will have a single rapid Armageddon game by bid, which is a really fun thing to see. So if we get any tiebreakers today, I'm super pumped to see what the players bid and how the Armageddon shakes out. But to go back to your point, Danya, it's not a must-win because you could win 2 games on command, but it definitely feels like it. Really, really tough when you lose the first game as white, as Alexeenko did.
Yeah, and in such convincing, smooth style, just outplaying him seemingly from the opening. This is a very topical opening in its own right, with Jose opting for an anti-Marshall A4 and now D3. Almost nobody goes into the Marshall these days. Almost nobody plays C3 in that critical position these days. And D6 by Alexeenko, we're going to have a long maneuvering middle game here, most likely.
Yep. For those of you who don't speak fluid Open Sicilian, Danya referring to, sorry, not Open Sicilian, Open Spanish. The Marshall, of course, being C3 and D4, and Black often meets it with this move D5, and you get a very, very theoretical, complicated pawn sacrifice in the Lopez. That's not what you often see at the highest levels these days. This A4 response to the early expansion by Black in the Spanish is more common with this D3 move. So I feel like I saw this position in the World Championship in 2021 from Dubai. 2021, added an extra 20 there.
2020, 20, 21, 22, 20, 21.
2020. There's a lot of 20s going around these days. We're in the 2020s. These are the 2020 years of our lives.
Let's just say 2020, maybe 20 times over.
Yep. If I was seeing 2020, I'd probably be more focused on the chess right now, which is what I'm going to do. So, okay, now that we have the analysis board up, let me show again what what I was about to show, which is in this position after castles, White has the option to play c3. And for many people, this is a more traditional way to play the Ruy Lopez for obvious reasons. You'd like to get a big center and capture back with the pawn. But because this move slows down your development, d5 as a strike back, and even at the sacrifice of this pawn, leads to all kinds of compensation for Black. And you don't see this type of stuff at the high levels anymore. Even if theoretically, I think the last time I checked, it was like a 30-move forced draw or something, and I don't really know, but maybe you do, Danya. This is a much more common way to see it because this is going to allow both sides to outmaneuver and outplay each other than those forcing lines.
Oh, absolutely. No, this is exactly what you need if you're trying to win with Black, a position like this, which is why Magnus is a pretty big fan of these positions. You're going to get your chances here, no question about it. But the Marshall, named after Frank Marshall, one of the top players in American chess in the early 20th century, always impressive when, somebody comes up with an opening 130, 120 years ago and it survives the test of time and people still avoid it now. Yep.
And the theory has evolved, and at times it's been of the opinion that the gambit wasn't good, and then it comes back and it's in vogue again, and suddenly no one wants to face it. So really, really a good point that a gambit invented by Frank Marshall is still the topic of great discussion now. I think it's time for us to move over and discuss one of the other games. Again, remind you, there are 3 games in action right now. I want to go to the big matchup that we waited too long to check in with last game, which is this Eric Hansen, now on the white pieces, competing against Lequang Liem after having won with Black. So let's pop over to that game and see what the Chess Bra has now with the first move. What a interesting looking position here.
Weird position. I think this comes out of our Ruy Lopez, and I think we saw some sort of a knight takes knight takes e5 variation.
Yeah.
But I'm not totally sure where this emerged from. The fact remains, White has the 2 bishops, an impressive pawn center, but Black has that knight on b4, which could be supported by c7, c5. And that would potentially threaten c4 to shut down White's bishop. So very, very sharp position here out of the opening.
Yeah, but Hansen and Lequang Liem both still with a lot of time, although this last move, queen d3, retreating from d2, as we can see, definitely puts an interesting question on the board. Will Black be aggressive and try to trap the bishop? And White also has this weird development issue over here on the queen side. I'm not an advanced Spanish expert these days, so I don't really know how to comment on the theory of this position. But the eval bar still says that White's okay. Why don't we back up and analyze if we can, and kind of show how we got here? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm very curious, actually. I have a feeling this we got this from Bishop c5, Ruy Lopez.
Okay, you were right. An arc angle-esque, as it's called, or maybe I think that's what it's called. But no, we get this knight takes e5, very common trap to sacrifice and then fork to regain your material. f4 early. Yep. This is a spicy one.
Yeah, I have a feeling this is still, semi-theory, maybe not super well-known theoretical position, although both sides have spent a good chunk of time. And there's e5 by Eric, advancing his pawn in the center and essentially offering a queen trade. So Black now has to decide, is he going to take on e5? Is he going to move the knight? And actually, if you take on e5, then White has to decide whether to trade queens on d8 first and then recapture on e5 or recapture immediately. So a lot of decisions here to be made by both sides. And the eval bar hates this particular
I think
course of
action.
You're
highlighting a really good point. Regardless of how we get to the end of that line, everybody, the point is when the f-file becomes open, White's bishop and rook have a date on f7. And when you combine other ideas like this rook coming in, I think that's, the tactics here are starting to favor White. And it now makes more sense why Eric played queen d2, John, which is actually a really instructive point, because if you went back to d1 in a lot of these positions, I think perhaps you actually on e5 would end up having to take back on d1 maybe with the rook, and you didn't want that. I don't quite know, but it feels like queen d2 makes more sense now that we see on the board that the d file is about to become open.
No, you're absolutely right. And here, if black takes on d2, you recapture with the bishop, and you're more than happy to do that. You're developing your bishop. You're getting a good position. And like you said, this type of position is very unpleasant for black. Knight g4. There's also knight e4, and the bishop on d2 is perfectly positioned, aiming at the knight and preventing black from pushing his c-pawn. So Lim has to tread very carefully here.
Yeah, if the knight goes here, there's e6 shots.
E6.
And suddenly the position is crazy. And if you go to e8, I would assume that maybe there's better moves, but both knight e4 and rook a7 just seem very, very straightforward. So again, shout out to the Chess Bra, and shout out to the fact that despite his popularity, he wasn't favored by most of the community. And you can use the command fantasy to check it out. But Eric might be about to play bracket buster for everybody, because if he wins this matchup, half the fans from the Chess Bra channel are going to be going nuts, but the other almost 68%, or I guess 66%, are not going to be too happy to see their bracket busted.
Yeah, Eric's just a nightmare matchup. I mean, he's just incredibly good. He's so streaky, and when he gets confident, you don't want to be anywhere near him. You don't want to touch a matchup with Eric Hansen with a 10-foot pole. So a big moment here is Lequang drops his knight straight away, so he doesn't open the channel of communications between the queens. And I still like the look of knight e4, and maybe that was another reason why Eric parked his queen on d2, where it serves the role that the bishop normally does of aiming at the b4 knight and discouraging c4.
It's super instructive, and it shows Eric Hansen, again, known for his streaming, is also a very, very strong grandmaster, very, very well prepared here. That this is not an idea I think you come up with over the board. The knowledge of the queen's effectiveness on d2 in a weird way blocking the bishop is really, the more we look at the position, it prevents c4 because of the pressure on the knight. As we said in the exchange lines, it naturally replaces that role with the bishop. I really like how Eric has played this. We'll see if he can... We'll see if he can cash in. But there's one other game that we should go check in on before we ultimately, as you know how this goes, Danya, we end up magnetically being pulled to one game at some point in these fast and furious moments. But let's go check out the battle between Rasmus Svane and Sam Sevian. That particular game is one where Svane, now with the white pieces, needs to find a way to bounce back. He lost the first game. This position here looking pretty tame. What do you think?
I think this is totally toothless. White is probably symbolically better here because black has a slight weakness on e6, but very soon you're not going to have any pieces left over to attack it with, because right now a queen trade is on tap and the bishops are staring at each other as well. So either you agree to the queen trade or you agree to allow bishop takes d3, and that damages your own pawn structure. I think this one is heading right into drawish territory. Yeah, this is
agreed.
This is nothing.
Bishop b5 was a really good move, especially when you're in a match situation where you're kind of in control, right? Whenever you win a game, you are now happy with a draw from here on out, right? Remember, these are 4-game matches. 2.5 points punches your ticket to the next round. I'm really liking Sam Sevian's approach here with the second move, and it's, as you called it, toothless. Was that what you called it?
I did.
I'm just acknowledging that was nice.
You liked that choice of word. Okay.
I like that. It's a toothless position for white. Agreed. It doesn't mean you can't try to bite without teeth, but if you've ever watched, someone with dentures eat ice cream, you know what I'm talking about. That does, often gets all over the place. All right. So bishop b5 is played. We're going to have a queen trade or bishop trade. And I think Sevian, not that I don't want to focus on this game, but I feel like the other two games are offering us a little more spice. Danya, what do you think?
I agree. No, this is, I'm 95% sure we're going to see a draw here. And it's not going to be too far away. I mean, everything's getting traded. There just isn't much left to play for in this position.
Okay. Well, and after that capture back on d3, for those wondering, yes, white could have taken with check, but in that case, you still would have had to capture back, and probably you're just getting a big fancy trade at the end. So unless something crazy happens, we are going to let this one be and assume that Sevian will maintain his lead going into game 3. And let's back up and go full circle, heading over to Jose Martinez game versus Kirill Alexeenko.
Yeah, and that game is, I don't know if it's heating up or if it's cooling down. It's kind of hard to say. We have had a couple of trades here with the trade on e6, and a pair of knights have also gotten traded. So the material balance is symmetrical. Knight and bishop for both sides. The b file is open, which probably at the moment works in black's favor, but eventually white could position the queen, for example, on c2 and contest the b file with rook e to b1. I think it's equal.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love highlighting things right as you're about to say it. But yeah, queen c2, rook b1. It's funny because long term, it's very close to equal, but maybe you give white the tiniest of positional edges long term, given that these double pawns are perhaps useful now, but the longer the game goes, if somehow white is the first one on this open file, that may mean some potential targets, whether it be the exposed 7th rank or the doubled pawns in the center. So again, very close to equal, like you said, but maybe the tiniest of long-term edges for white, possibly.
Yeah, also queen c2, maybe even queen a2 is something to consider. You're right. The e6 pawn is, I mean, it's a problem. And you might also have to invest the tempo in h6, of course, to prevent knight g5. But that weakens the g6 square, and then there's knight h4, knight g6. So I think this is exactly the kind of position Jospin likes to have. He can squeeze this.
Yeah.
And for Kirill, it's very frustrating because, you know, even if he manages to make his draw here, that's not the greatest result in the world. Jose would be pretty happy with the draw here.
Yeah, I'm with you. Similar to Sam Sevian, as we were just highlighting everyone, Jospin, Jose Martinez, is in control of this match. And maybe in even more control, given that he won with the black pieces. So that's a tough position to be in if you're Alexeenko. I loved your idea of queen c2, queen a2. I think that's super instructive. Full board awareness for the fans tuning in. By the way, shout out to all of you. We got about 6,000 of you on Twitch, about 1,000 of you on YouTube, maybe more. We're live on both of our YouTube channels. Wherever you're tuning in, hit the subscribe button. And yeah, thanks for being here. The day is just getting underway.
Yeah. No, this is a tough situation for Kirill, and gosh, everybody's so strong. It's just so hard to predict the way that these matches are going to go, which is exactly what makes this fascinating. If anybody's bracket is anywhere near perfect after the round of 64, I would be shocked. Now, your eyes are wide, Danny. C5, C4.
C4 didn't.
A drastic
C4
decision by Alexeenko.
Surprised me. I mean, but okay, instinctively, I know the engine went a little bit up for white. I love the move C4. I see it, and I go, wow, if you capture doubled pawns, you also have weakened the E4 pawn. I like C4 on principle, but the engine doesn't like it. So there's clearly something here for white.
D4.
Other than just taking the pawn. What is that move?
I think it's D4. And there's
D4.
a weird problem where if you play E takes D4, I think actually white will take back with a knight.
Oh, there's C3.
And,
okay, I see. So.
But also after
So
knight takes D4 is a
knight.
double attack. Knight takes E6 and knight C6 are both red, and there's no way to defend against both. I think black almost loses here.
So D4 is your suggestion on the counter shot. Note that Martinez is still thinking. You can see the live position. He's not sure what to do yet on C4.
Yeah, and the other interesting move is knight G5 after C4. You can go directly for the pawn on E6, and it can't really be defended. No, he goes for D4, and black responds with H6 to prevent knight G5.
H6 stops knight G5, queen E2, hits the C4 pawn, and black quickly responds with rook F to C8. Still a lot of spicy chess here in this position. You know, even if C4 wasn't the best move, if there was some other shot, you could see that the advantages were slight. And I like it from a practical perspective, Johnny. I feel like this is what Alexeenko needs to do in order to strike back and get a win with the black pieces. This position has got to get messy. You can't let, as you said, Martinez have a free hand like we were describing in those very slow positional lines, queen C2, queen A2. So I like this for Alexeenko.
Yeah, and I agree completely. And now black has the possibility maybe of establishing a rook on B3 and, you know, being a nuisance on the queen side in general. There's a lot more tension in the center, and you don't know who that tension is going to favor. No question that black's position is still a little bit more flimsy than white's. The pawn on c4, you still have some structural damage in the center, but this is exactly how you give yourself chances to win. You unbalance the position, and it's impossible to win a position like this without taking significant positional risk.
Yeah. Agreed, and well said. But and taking risks is going to be what you need if you're Alexeenko. You want Jospin, Jose Martinez to do that. So, all right. Well, we I don't want to take the risk of leaving Eric Hansen's game versus the Kwong Liam alone for too long. We made that mistake earlier and almost missed some crazy moments. So we're going to pop over to that again. The chess bra struck first. If you're just tuning in, it was a completely nutty finish with the Kwong Liam blundering in a winning position. But it doesn't matter how you got here, as the kids say, scoreboard. And the scoreboard has Hansen leading by a game.
It does. And I feel like he's struggling once again in the second game. We saw that very sharp opening with knight takes e5 and d4 and Ruy Lopez. And it looks like Eric has gotten the shorter end of the stick here. Like Kwong has a great knight on d5. The other knight is traveling to c5 and then maybe to d3. If black can stick a knight deep in white's territory, you're shaking your head. Things are going to get pretty darn nasty. You also don't want to play g3 here, Danny, and create permanent weaknesses on your king side.
Yep. Well, it's almost a similar story what happened last game. Again, for those of you who missed it, the game arc, if you will, saw a decent opening, well-prepared Eric Hansen. The Kwong Liam slowly worked his way back and ultimately outplayed the chess bra to be winning until a cataclysmic double question mark emote on the board, right? Knight a3 blundered a piece from the Kwong Liam. You can back up. I'm sure someone already clipped it and shipped it in that blunderful moment. But it's happening again, Danya. Le Kwong Liam is outplaying Eric Hansen. A great pony versus a dubious bishop, blocked behind its own pawns. I love the idea of slowly bringing pressure. And as you said, if white plays g3, now we got even more problems, right? And by the way, look at the time difference this time. Le Kwong Liam is now up 2 minutes on the clock. The last game was much closer to equal.
Yeah, no, this has been good time management, good position management by the Vietnamese Grandmaster. You do want to avoid g3 if you're Eric, unless you have no other way to defend the f4 pawn. I think if you're Eric, you want to put the rook maybe on e1 and just chill. You know, just basically look at your opponent and say, well, how are you actually going to make progress here? And it's a similar problem to the one that Eric experienced with the black pieces in the previous game, where he optimized all of his pieces, but then he had a hard time continuing to step on the gas pedal. And let's see if Le Kwong can solve that problem more successfully in this game. But no question that he's better, and this is basically a two-result game at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to highlight that one of the crazy things about the rooks doubled on the file would be that there's also a pin on the f4 pawn, so you can see shots like e5 coming in. And again, I'm just, speaking in hypotheticals, because obviously moving the rook right now would lose the e6 pawn. But that's a tactic to be aware of, that at some point the surprising shot of e5 might be something you have to watch for. Note that knight f6 is a double attack here, not just the queen, but bishop is also on pre. So probably a retreat to either c2 or e2 is required. And Danya, is he going to put the rook on d5?
And then maybe even on d3. And the knight switcheroo, indeed. Maybe the knight jumps into g4 at some point. Your move e5 is definitely in the mix. No, this is really unpleasant for Eric. Really, really unpleasant.
Yeah, it's again one of those positions you see a teeny edge, but there's a reason he's down almost 3 minutes on the clock, because he feels how critical this moment is. This is a position with a lot of sensitive points: the bishop, the pawn, the potential of the king in the back rank. But will Le Kwong Liam find a concrete way to improve? Is it bringing the rook here? Is it ultimately relocating the knight to a different outpost square on d3? The world is black's oyster.
Yeah, but on the other hand, white also has this idea of bishop e3 and bishop d4. And if Eric could do that and improve his bishop to the maximum, black still has this weakness on e6. And every time the rook from e8 moves, let's say, to f8 or to d8, there is the annoying possibility of the queen from c2, let's say, moving to e2 and harassing that e6 pawn. So from an objective standpoint, I think the evaluation is still very, very close to equal. but practically speaking, no question that it's going to be unpleasant for white for many moves to come.
I really like your idea of bishop e3, bishop d4, trading black's outpost squares for one for the bishop. So Lequang Liam going to have to be accurate in his tactical pressure of the f4 pawn, things that prevent the bishop from doing this. So this will be fun, and we'll see if the Vietnamese grandmaster, former World Blitz champion, can come back and even this match up. He does go for rook d5.
And we're going to see bishop e3, I think, by Eric. I don't really see an alternative. Maybe then your move.
For those just tuning in, we'll probably stay here right now. The game between Rasmus Svane and Sevian is petering out to a rook ending that is likely a draw. Again, you can go to chess.com/events and view it yourself if you don't believe me. I am keeping a close eye on the game between Alexeenko and Jose Martinez. Similar to where we left it, but we will definitely be bouncing back there as both players are about to be under 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to get that situation again with multiple time scrambles on multiple boards. I suppose that's a good problem to have.
Bishop e3, met by e. Ooh, okay. He was ready for it too. He played it instantly.
And it stops bishop d4, but most importantly, it exploits the awkwardness of the way that white's pieces are currently arranged. After f takes e5, rook, I think, on d takes e5. Yeah. And you might say, oh, f4 pins the rook to the queen, but after rook takes e1, white's got problems with his back rank. So that's out of the question.
Yeah, 99 problems.
Minor
and a back rank is 1. But if you don't go to f4, the other thing about e5 that you called out earlier, I want to point out is knight g4 suddenly looms in the air, right? Checkmate tactics on h2 are something you have to be very, very aware of. So e5 was played instantly by Lequang Liam, and I think he's sensing not just the awkwardness of white's pieces, but also the awkward moment on the clock, and knows that maybe now is the time to make Hansen have to figure it out.
And Hansen's trying to figure it out. He drops his queen back to c1 to overprotect the f4 pawn. And knight g4 here looks very, very tempting, but, you know, maybe that cashes in too soon and the bishop can drop back to g1. So Lequang, he's got to find a way to keep, as you said, the flames of the initiative burning, because if Eric can stabilize the situation, there's a high probability that things really peter out in the center. And if you get a mass trade, you know, Eric's going to have no problem drawing, let's say, a queen and bishop versus queen and knight position here with 2 minutes on the clock.
Can you play e4 if you're black and go for the... I know it gives up the bishop d4 square, but my idea was e4, bishop d4, and then I do your knight g4, rook h5 plan, and I'm kind of all in on the closed position for some sort of attack. Maybe I got checkmate on the brain. Classic Danny here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. E4 also has the benefit of ensuring that all the pieces are kept on the board. After bishop d4, maybe even an exchange sack on d4 can be considered. Pretty drastic, but...
wow. I was trying to do it so the engine would prove you wrong. LOL, joke's on me. Engine agrees with you. Likes black.
Well, the pawn on e4 is very strong. The rooks are sort of staring at pawns. And I just feel like this is a practically good option. But Lequang instead moves his queen back to c6. Interesting choice to aim at the g2
He's got
pawn.
ideas of crazy things over here. And he's still trying to bait Hansen into taking to double the rooks.
I like that move. It's an open-ended move. It forces Eric to make a decision. And with every ticking second, it becomes harder and harder to make a well-informed decision as Eric shifts his king away from the queen's x-ray.
All right, well, as Eric shifts the king away from the x-ray, we're going to shift away from this game and go check back in with the game between Jose Eduardo Martinez versus Kirill Alexeenko. Of course, the underdog, I guess, by some people's book in terms of Martinez. Maybe he's not the underdog. Maybe I'm wrong. I guess for some reason I think that people would think Alexeenko, but Martinez won the first game with black, and, well, he's in an okay position here as white, although it is starting to creep toward Alexeenko's favor. I really like this idea of rook b1 because this trade would really be a pain in the you-know-what for Martinez.
And the secret sauce in all of this has been the c4 move that you praised, and I agree was
Amazing decision by Kirill, and he's reaping the
Yep.
benefits of that so many moves down the line with every disappearing major piece. White's pawn situation in the center and on the queen side, the a4 pawn, everything is tender. Black's got these strongholds in White's territory on b3 and on d3. And most importantly, I always like to point this out, Danny, when there's only one open file, the side that controls it generally holds all of the cards. And here, the b file is open, Black's queen is in firm control, and Jose is firmly on the defensive here.
No, and it is always instructive to point out, because I think sometimes too, depending on the level of chess understanding, as a viewer, you look at this and it seems really close to equal, materials equal, but when you look at the square control on the board, which is ultimately what defines the power of the pieces, not just the mathematical value, it's what options do they have? And if you control the only open file, you control all the super highways. You're in control of where this game goes. You're currently threatening to win a pawn. This is a much harder position for Martinez to play than maybe the eval bar would suggest, and he's almost down to a minute on the clock. But you called it, like I said in the moment. C4 was a very big move, and also just super well timed when Alexeenko played it. I think it's ultimately going to allow him to even the score in this match. I really like his chances.
Yeah, no, he's got great winning chances here. Now a minute on the clock for Jose, and the a pawn is on fire. It's not clear how to defend it. You can maybe play knight d2, but then the c pawn hangs. It's one of those situations where no matter what move you make, something else is going to give. White's center is on the verge of collapse as well. And as I've been talking, he's down to 45 seconds. A dire situation for the Peruvian GM.
Knight d2, as Anya said, probably c3 was the pawn you took there. Okay, a5 is played, but now what does Alexeenko do to keep the pressure? Is it, you can't go queen a3 because the c4 pawn falls, and if you go to a4, you release c3, so maybe then knight d2 is an option. I don't know.
Exactly.
Okay, he goes a4. We're gonna find out.
Yeah, knight d2, maybe e takes d4 and then c3. Queen b2 by Jose, so he determines the most important thing is to get control of the b file. An interesting practical decision, trying to get as much activity as possible for his queen. Yeah, queen a5, queen b7 is his idea. Move. Wow.
It's a nice move when you use the anchor of an advanced pawn as a means to re-grab control of the only open file. An instructive idea to kind of keep the counterplay at bay there, push the white queen back.
Yeah, and queen b5 I was going to say I like a lot more because it prevents queen b2, but now it allows queen a2. So Jose staying alive.
He finds it.
Staying alive.
Hi. Okay.
How about
We're not doing that yet.
ED and D5? I'm just going to ignore that I said that or did that.
You're saying ED and D5? Or no, you were kidding?
I think... No, I'm serious.
No, he goes, okay, ED. That makes sense. And if C takes D, you called it. And the idea is you now have this protected pass pawn, assuming you capture back with the pawn here. This is a very big advantage, and the d4 pawn remains a target for the black bishop.
King f7 now, I would say, to protect the e6 square. And then maybe the knight from d7 can shift from b8 to c6, attacking both of White's major pawn targets. But I think Jose is going to try to go g4, g5. Jose needs to create counterplay on the king side while the situation is still stable. And there he goes.
I like it, even if it gives Alexeenko the advantage. I think this is the time to do it. Let's get things spicy here, as both sides now have less than a minute on the clock. By the way, the other two games also still going. Also, pretty much everybody now under a minute on the clock. Go to chess.com/events. Tune in. We might stick here, even though Eric Hansen's game with the Kwong Liem, also a huge one. This is what we want. Drama all around on every board.
Drama indeed. 30 seconds for Kirill. King f7 and knight e6 is what came to my mind. The f4 square is so tender. It's a forkable square, but the time situation has equalized, and Kirill seems to be getting nervous here as he drops his queen back to g6. Time scramble incoming.
Time scramble incoming. This is a spot where you usually would favor Jospin, just given that we've seen him swindle and beat his opponents on the clock so many times in all the online events that we hold here. So I'm nervous if I'm Alexeenko as well.
And he's playing great. And that trade has benefited white because the bishop on e1 safely restrains the pawn on c4. And the knight and queen can't really create that many chances against white's king. And look at how active Jospim's queen is here. He might be turning this around. H5.
He's dialed in too. You see that? I mean, okay,
totally.
Blink if you're there, Jospim. Okay, we see him blink. Now can he grab a6? Okay, he doesn't. I wonder if white could have just stolen that a6 pawn.
Maybe he should have. I think he was worried about knight e6 and queen f4.
Flag! I just looked at the clock and we were not paying attention to that. What is going on? Okay.
No idea. It was 2 down to 0.2 seconds.
Yeah, that was scary. And now Alexeenko has kind of turned the table. Before, the queen and knight weren't coordinated, but now they're poking and prodding, looking for tactics.
They are. Yeah, poking and prodding is right. But Jose, for the time being, is keeping everything stable. C3 is a huge threat now. And a queen trade. And who does that favor?
Wow.
It's hard to say. It's hard
I don't know,
say.
but
King f4, king e5.
The fact that he was able to evaluate that he could go for that with no time on the clock. Wow. Oh, there was a blunder there on bishop b4.
No, because
I don't know what it is, but Alexeenko seems to.
It's just that the knight comes to c6 and white has no path forward, and black should be able to win this now. Knight.
But what else was white supposed
F5?
to do if that was the case?
No, it was so hard to defend that. It was impossible.
Yeah. Okay, we might have an
B5.
even matchup at the end of this game.
Oh, Jose still trying. He's going to take h6. It's still
trying.
not
Going to take h6. Okay, but now black has 2 passed pawns, which are better than 1. Thanks, Yogi Berra.
F4. That went way over my head.
Here, they're trying to win cash, which is as good as money in this tournament.
Yeah, but now oh, look at that knight on d6. It's holding down the king. The king cannot move to e4.
Yeah, and the knight can always go to f7. So maybe now you have to play f5. No, he doesn't.
b5.
Wow.
Still not over. King e4.
Alexeenko now down. Okay, I think he's probably gotten through a Jospim. Only 0.5 seconds when he made that move, and I don't think that he has enough to make this messy.
No, the king moves into the center, and it's just a matter of time. Black's going to find a way to make inroads here. How exactly though?
Yeah, I was going to say now the d pawn. Okay, I think you can move the knight, and if you take d4, is there c2? I don't know. Okay, he's going to try to bring the king around to h5, I guess. Okay, this is the idea.
No, but the bishop's going to go to e5 and then to f6, so you're actually not going to be able to move in. Oh, but that might be Zugzwang. Knight a3 and c2.
I have no idea, but I know that it's going to be an instructive. Okay, he finds this idea, forces king d2, only move.
Okay,
and then black can play d3 and knight c4 checks. Okay, eventually the 2 pawns in the knight broke through this blockade.
There was one way or another. Knight c4. Ooh, don't take it. Wow, Jose exhausting every last option. Now you can't take it still because of f4.
That is so instructive. We'll back up and show you. Look at the. Oh, you could have taken with the knight there. That's pretty funny. But this is a stalemate trick, everybody. That bishop was poisoned to the black king. It would have been a stalemate for white. Although Alexeenko not going to fall for it.
D2. D2 ends the game. D2 was easy.
Okay.
But he can also
here
get
the
his
bishop
knight
has finally been forced off of the diagonal, and f4 will fall, and the game is over. Okay. Wow. I don't know who I'm more impressed with there, though. Alexeenko tying things up or Jospim's ability to exhaust every possible resource there. I mean, that's why he's so good. He may not have been successful there, Danya, but he has swindled so many people in these types of fast time controls with tricks like that.
Yeah, that was such impressive, surgical precision, really, by Kirill. And, there were some ups and downs in that game, but really he kept his foot on the gas pedal. He didn't blunder, and he made things as difficult as possible for Jose. The decision to play c4 pays off in a big way as he ties the match after
Yep.
2 games. And Eric managed to hold that position. So another successful result for the Canadian.
Let's bring up the results as they stand here after 2 games in each of these respective matchups. We now see the score. We didn't get to see the final moments, but the Canadian chess bra Eric Hansen holds a draw again, maintaining a lead against the Kwong Liem. Sam Sevian won for the second time. I think, Danya, I think that one was an example of Rasmus Svane maybe just pushing a little too hard, and now that match is all but over, basically.
Yeah, 2-0, and Sevian I don't think he's going to lose the next game. This is a very, very tough way to go for Rasmus, but Sevian is such a beast in the rapid time control, and yeah, what to say? Just a monster.
For those marking down their plans for the rest of the day as we roll into the early afternoon here on the West Coast, Francisco Vallejo Pons will take on Maxim Matlikov, as you can see right there. And then we have Andrei Esipenko versus Bassem Amin. So still a lot of chess ahead, and these matchups are keeping us on the edge of our seat. So, okay, it is the Chess.com Global Championship. It's day 1 as the round of 64 gets underway. We still have plenty more action ahead. Don't go anywhere. Our commentary will return in just a few.
Of his early promise while qualifying for the Chess.com Global Championships.
Look at him. He's looking pleased. He knows he got this under control.
Competing in one of the first handful of play-in events, Sevian was simply faster than the competition. After scoring 7.5 points out of 9 to reach the playoff match, he flagged his opponent to secure a spot in the CGC bracket of 64.
Sam Sevian is gonna make it through. He secured himself a big place in the knockouts.
Placed in a group with fellow American Levon Aronian, Sevian will look to continue to tap into the confidence he walked away with from his performance during the play-in phase and other recent successes.
I'm really happy with my play. I won some really nice games overall, and yeah, it's pretty good.
Master Daniel Naroditsky. Daniel, it's about to get even spicier here. The next 2 matchups are also getting set to begin. We already have 3 underway. We're going to be spoiled for choice here. Let's do a quick reset to remind everybody of where these matchups currently stand before the games get underway. And Daniel, let me ask you, what is the biggest surprise so far with the scoreboard you see before you?
Well, I have to point to Eric Hansen's match. He's up 1.5. You know, he shortened this to the 4th quarter, and not only that, he's up a point. He would be more than happy with a 1-1 score after 2 games. And if he can hold this one, Danny, with the black pieces, I don't think Eric's going to lose the last game with the white pieces. So Lei Kwang, yes, he's got 2 more chances, but this is basically a must-win game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, to remind everybody of a stat we gave earlier, that would be quite the bracket buster if Eric Hansen was to move on. Use the command fantasy to go check it out. But more than 65% of the community had Lekwang Liem going on, not Eric Hansen. So Chessbra trying to play spoiler. And I can't wait to see what happens. There were also votes, of course, for the other matchups. We'll remind you of what those were. Most people had Sam Sevian. He is winning his matchup. But most people also had Alexeenko, which is interesting, because Martinez could also bust up the majority of brackets with a victory. So, all right, I'm excited. I can't wait to see what Vallejo Pawns and others bring along, as well as Esipenko. Shout out to the featured chats coming in. We see you, community. We appreciate all your thoughts, and thanks for being with us here. Keep the good comments coming, and see your question or comment featured on screen. So, I think the games are getting set to begin here. Otherwise, we'll just hang out.
I mean, I just wanted to say that I'm a big fan of Bassem, and of course Esipenko, but Bassem is also a medical doctor, super impressive guy. I think the first and only Egyptian player to cross 2,700. I'm not sure if he's over 2,700 at the present moment, but not necessarily the most familiar name to most chess fans, Danny, but he's one of those guys, when he gets going, he's incredibly dangerous.
Agreed. And you're talking about the good Dr. Bassem Amin. I'm getting all of our games pulled up here just so we are truly spoiled for choice as things roll on. I actually have that particular matchup pulled up here first. That is Andre Esipenko, the young man who beat Magnus Carlsen at the at the Tata Steel tournament last year, and really turned a lot of heads in doing so. He is taking on Bassem Amin, not as well known, I think, doesn't play as many events online as some of the other names in this event. But like you said, a fascinating person. The good doctor, as he was nicknamed when he helped his team in the Pro Chess League do very well a couple years ago. Speaking of the Pro Chess League, it's coming back. Big announcements coming there. Cannot wait for the PCL to take things over in 2023. So watch out for that, everyone.
What do you call it when Amin plays F3 against the King's Indian? The Bassemish. Number 2, Danny, and it's been what, an hour and a half? So this is not such a bad clip, right? It's bearable.
I feel like Robert in these moments where I look around and I wonder, it's Robert, like I look around for help and there's no one here.
This is where he gives me the death
now
stare.
That we've mentioned we've mentioned the brackets and how people voted for the other 3 matches we've been following. Just fun fact: 81% of our bracket tiers, if you will, had Andre Esipenko defeating Bassem Amin. So that young man from Russia is very well known and very dangerous at fast time controls. And the community spoke. 80% of people think he's going to move on. A much closer matchup for the record in Vallejo Pawns versus Maxim Matlikov. Only a 55% majority have Matlikov moving on against Vallejo Pawns, for the record.
Wow. And Vallejo is another one of those incredibly enterprising players who's been over 2,700 for eons, super experienced. And what I said at the start of the show, Danny, about watching all sorts of generations compete in this tournament. You've got the Boris Gelfand-Vichy generation. You've got the Andre Esipenko generation. But in the middle are people like Vallejo Pawns and like Bassem Amin, who are still relatively young, but who've got that experience under their belts that makes them so incredibly dangerous.
Yep. No, well said. And I think we're going to see some upsets, if you will, in that regard. I mean, okay, Vladimir Kramnik moving on from he's obviously of the older generation, wasn't necessarily an upset, but don't be surprised if he moves on again. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what these less known names like Bassem mean, but their experience can do in big moments against a young guy like Andrei Esipenko. So, okay, we have to talk about the chess. We have a Ruy Lopez on the board. No need for analysis, but I'll just quickly show how we got here. Just a basic Spanish game, and this is a position you see very often. White having eventually played d4, and you've got these Lopez bishops hoping for nasty things on the king side. But black is also very well developed, can strike back at the center. Lots of action still ahead. I was just about to say, usually h3 has been played to stop bishop g4, but here Esipenko allowed it.
Esipenko is playing this like it's a bullet game.
Yeah.
And bishop takes f3, by the way, obviously has to be considered. White is going to recapture with the g-pawn. And a lot of people would go for that without a second thought. But the problem is that it's both a blessing and a curse. Yes, White's king side is weakened, but you get this massive pawn phalanx in the center that could cause mass devastation after f4 and e5. So not a decision to be made lightly here for Bassem as he's taking his time.
Yeah, he chooses not to take here, which he takes f3. And plays knight b4 and c5, but here comes d5. And you mentioned that Esipenko playing it like it's a bullet game, still playing like it's a bullet game. With the 2-second increment, has only used 18 seconds on the clock.
Crazy.
By the way, Don,
A3, by the way,
is a threat. I was just about to say that. Hey, we completed each other's.
We did a Danya Robert moment.
But we completed each other's
sentences.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, I see. You wanted me to complete that sentence. I'm pretty sure you've done that before, and I did the exact same thing where I wasn't sure what you were saying. Danny, give us a couple years. Be patient.
We'll get there. Okay, G takes f3 played. I really like what you highlighted about this structure, though, because I think this is instructive in that initially your feeling is always not to double your pawns and open your king. But with such big control over the center and the power of the bishops, when this position blows open, you're not going to be thinking about the king exposed here. You're going to be thinking about what those pawns and what those nasty bishops are capable of in the open board. So very dangerous stuff. At the same time, a very solid position for Bassem, right? This is plenty of chess ahead, and he's holding his own right now.
No, and he's a big specialist in the Ruy Lopez with black. He's been playing it his entire life. And, even though he's a little bit down on the clock, he seems very comfortable here as he repositions his dark squared bishop to g7. It's an unbalanced position where all three results are possible. Exactly what you want as the underdog here in game one.
So many big names and big games is exactly what the fans want. Just let me remind everybody, we now have 5 in action currently. 5 games. You can go to chess.com/events and watch them. You do not watch them necessarily from the main play server where they're playing it. That is because of our relay delay by Fair Play Design, in case you're wondering. You got to watch them at chess.com/events. We can go anywhere, Danya. I got previews up. Every one of these positions
Let's go to Paris.
Has something interesting and instructive. Where you want?
Paris, Rome, Madrid. All right, let's go to let's take a quick look at the Vallejo-Malakov position. Then maybe we could switch back to Eric Hansen's match.
Agreed. I think we should give credit where credit's due. We checked on the one matchup that just got underway between Esipenko and Amin. Now we have Vallejo Pawns versus Matlikov. Kind of tame in that I'm anticipating even more trades to occur. Perhaps their first game will shake off the nerves, right? And maybe a peaceful result for both players.
I'm kind of regretting selecting this game. I wasn't expecting.
It's okay. I think we needed to acknowledge, again, 2 new challengers have entered the arena, right? A new challenger approach. What is it on Smash Brothers? It's like a new challenger enters the arena.
I know what you're talking about,
We are such dorks, man. I mean, seriously, everything that comes out of our mouth is just like we are the biggest dorks.
It's the cringe, dorky,
All right, well, let's go over to Lequang Liem and Eric Hansen. You pointed out, I think rightfully so, that it's kind of now or never for the former World Blitz champ, right? You got to get a victory, I think, as white in this game because you're down a point. You don't want it to come down to must win with black. He has an edge. I like the bishop on the diagonal. And
again, he's better out of the opening.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the direction of this one?
Yeah, no, this is again a very, very comfortable position for Lequang. Eric is very cramped, and you can see him dropping instantly back to B1. The key to the kingdom here is to keep your light scored bishop alive. That is what's going to give you attacking chances, as you're pointing out, against H7. There's a couple of ideas. White's position is very rich here. You can go knight D2, back to F1 in order to reopen your dark scored bishop. Then I like to move to H4 to set up a stronghold on G5. And obviously, at the present moment, Black is controlling both the C2 and D3 squares. But should the bishop move away from B7, the idea of a battery with the queen coming up to D3 is very, very scary. And Eric, love the decision he just made to play F6 and change the direction of the game, because he was getting cramped and he's trying to pose new challenges to Lequang Lim.
I thought you were about to say that Eric loves himself some Ben Feingold streams, which is why he's playing the move F6, right? No, just kidding. It is a very double-edged move, right?
No, that was so funny. I'm still busy laughing.
Even though we like F6 from a practical perspective, I'll present the counter view, which is you played F6 because you're worried about the potential attacking ideas that you highlighted, and F6 really, really weakens the E-pawn if this file opens up. And so if you're Lequang Liem at the same time, at least you know you're going to get some winning chances in this game. This position is going to remain double-edged for a long time.
Yeah, and the other thing F6 weakens is the E5 square. That's sort of the positional component. After EF6, I assume Eric's not taking with a pawn, although maybe he actually might and then play knight E8 to G7. But if he takes back with the bishop, the E5 square is a potential stronghold for White's knight, but it'll be well defended by the knight on D7 and the bishop on F6. The issue also for Lequang is that his rook on A1 is totally buried, Danny, and if the position opens up, you don't want a situation where a bunch of your pieces are, still sleeping.
Undeveloped. Yeah. Okay, no, well said. And maybe that's why Lequang plays knight to B3, not just to open up the dark squared bishop, but eventually perhaps complete development on this side of the board. I like kind of maintaining the tension here. They often say that when it comes to these types of exchanges, the first person to blink in the staring contest is usually conceding something. So you build on the tension. Maybe you're going to play bishop F4. Maybe you switch positional gears here, Danya. If you're not going to checkmate anymore on F6, you play bishop D3. Sorry, not like a knight. That's not legal. Last time I checked, but bishop D3 is. And if the bishops are traded, you're developing. And so I think that's how the footwork of these games work, right? I mean, F6 had to be played because of the attack, but now Lequang has a positional edge, and he can get developed and slowly try to pry his way toward an E-file dominance.
Yeah, knight B3 was actually an excellent move. Absolutely, just phenomenal. Chef's kiss. And I agree, bishop D3, the demands of the position have changed. You're no longer trying to go for a checkmating attack against Black's king. That's just not realistic. I think you've basically switched to a positional assault on Black's E-file, trying to regain control of key central squares, and trying to keep the knight on E8 out of the game. And Eric's piece is uncoordinated.
Yeah. I feel like we just said the same thing there. So basically, I'm commentating at a grandmaster level today. I'm just saying that.
Oh, that goes without saying. You always commented at grandmaster level.
Thank you. Okay, we see Lequang Liem from the fair play view, if you will. Every player playing under 2-cam, proctor, observation, along with delay and all kinds of other checks that we're not going to talk about. But it is kind of cool, I think, to see the other view versus the face cam. I saw a comment in chat earlier that isn't that unfair because you can see what Lequang Liem's doing. I don't think anyone can see anything but the chessboard there besides our fair play team who's more zoomed in on that. But I do like the view. Okay, knight to B3. Here comes bishop F4. Hansen has his work cut out for him, but all he needs really is to hold this game to maintain a pretty dominant position in the match itself. Remember, it is 4 games of 15 minutes plus 2 seconds. So this is the third game. Hansen is currently up a point. All right. 2 other games underway that started when this day did back at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'm going to drive us over to this, quickly check into the matchup that could be over. This could be the last time we get to talk about this game, and that is, of course, Sam Sevian versus Rasmus Svane. He's up 2 games in the matchup, and actually up 2 games on the scoreboard as well. So
Oh,
tough
God,
position
this
for
is
Rasmus.
disaster. No, Rasmus tilted out of this match. This is over.
Yeah.
And all Sam needs is a draw. He's up a pawn. Oh my God! And look at Black's king, and the knight from c3, diving into e4. This is over.
I mean, the knight's coming into e4. I mean, I want to know what happened in this opening. I mean,
how did
White
this
is
happen
bringing the
so
knight
quickly?
in. Driving the h-pawn is delicious.
Oh. No, this is. I mean, knight e4, h4, like you're saying. You don't even have to do anything. Just king g2 and knight e5, and Sam is enjoying his life right now.
So Sam Sevian might be the first of these matchups that started at 9 a.m. Pacific to punch his ticket to the round of 32. Again, he's up 2 games currently. Even a draw would end this match and allow Sam to move on. So we'll see a dominant performance. I think we got a great profile of Sam that maybe we'll play for. I think we did at the break. For those who don't know Sam Sevian, you should continue to get to know him a little better. It's definitely a dark horse who could be dancing in Toronto when we head there.
Oh, he's so confident right now after his phenomenal performances in several of the RCC weekends, Danny. I mean, he is just boundless confidence, well-rounded, very fast. You know, I'm putting him squarely as one of the guys who has the best chances outside of the Hikaru Wesley contingent of making the final 8.
Wow, those are some heavy words of praise. You said in your player profile, this guy broke the record for youngest American GM more than a few years ago, and he's always been a rising star. The online world has prevented so many opportunities for players like that. And like you said, in the RCC and other events, he continues to show his might. And what a dominant victory this would be. He might even just go there 3-0, right? Like Vladimir Kramnik did. Say, hey there, world champ.
Even messing around.
I can join you.
Yeah, very
Plays
impressive,
95.
by the way, by Vladimir Kramnik.
Yeah, super
Such a
impressive.
privilege to watch him. No,
Okay, 95 played. I kind of want to. I know this one is the one with the least amount at stake in a weird way, but I almost want to see how Sevian puts it away.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I want to see a queen sack on f6 or something.
I do. I want to see a queen sack on f6. If queen d6 is played, I want to see a queen sack on h6 and take f7, even though it's probably a horrible idea. I want to see tactics.
That's
anyway,
pretty cool, actually.
I think Sevian is very in control of this game, and likely will be the first one moving on to the round of 32 of these games going on right now. So, okay, I think time to head over to the only game we haven't looked at so far as this last set got underway, and that was the game between Martinez and Alexeenko, with the former player playing white. Actually, Alexeenko back at it, I guess, in this sort of G3 Sicilian type structure. This is similar to what we saw in the first game, but a much more open position, but still a good one for Martinez. Alexeenko's not getting anything in this position as white.
I don't understand the decision to repeat this opening. I'm going to be totally honest here. You know, it went very wrong for Kirill in the first game. It's not one of those things where he's played this for his whole life, and this is his system. There's many ways to avoid theory, and he just seems to be playing right into Jose's wheelhouse. Now, he is up a pawn in this position. I think compared to their first game, this is a much better version for white, but he's got so many structural weaknesses, Danny. Just look at his minor pieces. The pawn on c3 is a big weakness, and Jose's pieces are really optimally positioned, just like they were in their first game.
Yep. No,
So,
he's been
black is better,
playing well with it's a match that still could go anyone's direction, even if Martinez is to win with the match tied at 1 game apiece. But you have to be happy with what you've gotten when playing black if you are Jose Martinez. This has been easy stuff so far. Very, very smooth game, and he's also up 3 minutes on the clock for the record.
I'm going to predict that we're going to get an Armageddon in this match.
Yeah?
I'm going to predict 2-2. Yep.
Well, then go all the way. Don't stop
spoken.
there, right? Don't leave the kids hanging. Feed the baby birds. Who's going to win the Armageddon?
I think Jose is a favorite in the Armageddon, I would say. Just because he's got more experience and, any no increment time control, he's a monster. So, that's why I'm disappointed in Kirill's opening choice here, because this is the game that he really needs to try to win. Because if this game ends even in a draw, Jose with the white pieces in the last game is not going to play with too much risk, because he's more than fine to get into an Armageddon.
Yep. Well, I don't disagree with you that Jose Martinez would be the favorite in Armageddon, but I'm not sure I agree that we're going to get Armageddon. I think there's a good chance Jose Martinez wins this game with black and now only needs a draw with white in game 4. I mean, this is as you said, ugly minor pieces, bad pawns, dominant and well-coordinated pieces for black. I mean, every single piece, like find a better square for any of them, right? I mean, it's just fantastic. So,
but I'm not sure I like his last move, and white has the possibility of knight f4, knight d5. So I think there are redeeming qualities to white's position. And let's not forget that he's up a pawn.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'll back off. But all right, this is still, I think when I look at what's going on the clock as well, it just makes you really like black's chances. But you're right. White is up a pawn. This knight f4, knight d5 idea is the first plan I've seen for white in several moves. So that makes sense. And we'll see what happens. So
the most important thing you said there was you're right.
Okay. I mean, I back off here a little bit. Remind everybody there are 5 games going. Lots of interesting stuff. I'm gonna bring this thing full circle. Quickly check on the battle between Esipenko and Bassem Amin, mainly because there's a huge disparity, and maybe not on the board, but on the clock. And this is one of the risks. We talked about the interesting angle of players like Vladimir Kramnik and Boris Gelfand, and exciting to see. But what do we also know is the risk of having not played a lot of online chess, or as much online chess as the young generation like Esipenko. It's what you're seeing on the clock here. This is the type of thing that you get nervous about if you're a Bassem Amin fan or a fan of any of the players who got invited, who maybe don't play as much online chess.
Yeah, this is not what the doctor ordered, but just making sure you give it a moment of silence.
I don't have to acknowledge every reference you make that is awkward. Anyway, Bassem Amin is a doctor by trade, for those who don't know, and an awesome human being. And for those who also don't know that, okay, he did manage to steal the f3 pawn. So even though the eval bar didn't change, I'm liking his chances more.
He's down. What is he down? 2 pawns.
Yeah, and now he's going to lose this h7 pawn.
But he's got the only redeeming quality is the king position and the pawn on c4, which he has to keep alive at all costs. Oh, yeah. And after rook takes h7, there's knight e1 check, and I think black gets a perpetual with knight e1 and knight f3.
That's super nice to show, just to show everybody this perpetual. And even if the king goes here, you would allow this. And the point is the king can never leave defense of the knight. So that's the problem. Nicely spotted. Could be a blunder there from Esipenko if he's not careful. And so
no, this is a 3-result game.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, this is a 3-result game. Black's pieces are so incredibly active here.
Yep.
But I think the likeliest outcome is probably some sort of a draw.
Yeah, despite the time advantage for white, I agree. This king being so active, the knight being so pesky, and even this rook can switch to the A file in a moment's notice. Obviously, you don't want to leave the B pawn for too long, but watch out for that. That would be something that if it happens, we're back to maybe one player winning, right? So if black plays rook A8, it might be because he spotted some sort of potential mating net or some sort of really dangerous trap over here.
Yeah, in order to make rook a8 possible, you're going to have to deal with b6. So, for example, on the next move, rook a8 would run into b6, and then you can't play rook a3 because of the fork on b5.
Yep.
But black's immediate threat, of course, is knight e1 check and knight f3. I think Bassem is loading that up, and I don't see a clear way for white to prevent that.
Yeah, honestly, the more we look at it, you first highlighted it as something to be aware of on rook takes h7. But as we look at it, I think that's probably why the engine says this is equal. Like, how does white actually stop this knight e1 check?
Yeah, it's a threat. And if you move your knight from c3, you lose the entire house in the center. You lose e4 and d5. And
you can hardly, and b5, you can't really afford that.
Yep. Agreed, Town. Population us. Well, it would be a good hold, I think, for Bassem to start the day, right? Especially, again, I know we keep talking about it, but it's because it's one of the interesting dynamics. You had 32 players invited, 32 players qualified. You have legends of the game from a previous generation in some respects versus rising stars and maybe legends of tomorrow, right? So it's kind of cool to get these matchups. But again, the disparity here on the clock, and if you're getting a draw with black as Bassem Amin, I think you'd be happy with that to start your CGC debut.
Absolutely. And by the way, just to point out, king d1 is bad because of king takes c3, and that rook endgame with a passer on c4 would have been way too dangerous, and a draw is agreed. A repetition of moves, and I agree, a great result for Bassem, shaking off the nerves, holding with the black pieces, and taking a drink of water. You know what that means. He is happy with the way he played, and he's going to have the white pieces in the next game.
Agreed.
Okay.
Bassem Amin
pulled up Vallejo Matlakov.
We have Vallejo pawns taking his first shot here in the CGC. Also one of the 32 invited players versus Maxim Matlakov, who qualified his way in. A very equal-looking position here. Ooh, queen takes c3. We're getting under time pressure, though. Only 3 minutes for Vallejo pawns. Again, we see the players who don't play as much online chess down on the clock in almost every game, to be honest. Same here.
And the queen is almost trapped. Queen b4 would run into d5. But black has queen a1 or queen c1, and I think a repetition here as well is not impossible. Queen a1, rook d1, or even rook takes e5. It looks like things are very close to fizzling out into a draw.
Yeah, agreed. There could be just a quick game of tickle here, back and forth, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see rook d1 as well. Noted that the queen doesn't really have any escape square besides a3. I mean, does the queen want to avoid a draw that bad to put herself on the side of the board? No one puts baby in the corner. You don't really want that.
I
Shout out
guess
to
for
David
Vallejo
Sturf with the raid. Welcome in, everybody, to the Chess.com Global Championship. 100 of you joining the party.
Welcome all. Yeah, Vallejo had to decide there whether to play rook d1 or not, but he decides to take immediately. Sorry.
Yeah. But I was going to say white wants a little more, apparently. Doesn't want to repeat.
Yeah, well, black's king is in a little bit of trouble, right? The queen has abandoned home base, but rook d8, very accurate move by Maxim, because if he would have taken on e5, Danny, then after queen takes e5 check, storm clouds would start to gather around black's king. Queen f6, rook f3, and not to mention the pawn on b5 simply hanging. So very, very precise defensive move. Yeah, 1-0, exactly.
Yeah, so rook takes e5 was not what you wanted. And rook d8 now met by rook e3. I like this move, though. Look at Vallejo's pressure. It's not just the e-file. It's also an unleashing of the queen on e2. You're threatening to take b5. Okay, computers say the position's equal, and with best play, this is the type of position that should peter out. But this is also a very blunderable moment.
It's a good word.
I love it. Blunderable. It's a blunderful life. And in this position, black has to be very careful, as you pointed out, that in the end, you don't want the position to open up and the king to come under fire.
Yeah, I mean obviously the threat is rook takes e6.
Yeah, just take, right? I mean, if you take here, I think white goes for this, although maybe in the end, even this you have to take back, maybe. I don't know.
Yes.
But probably some sort of draw will still be possible.
No, but BA, I think BA, and then, the other problem is the a5 pawn becomes a serious weakness.
Yeah.
So then, in the event of a trade, exactly.
Okay.
Also, all of the pawns are hanging.
All right, I like it. You're right. Once again, I know you love that. You love hearing those words. I'll say it all night.
Those are the golden words. That's how you keep me commentating. But no, this is unpleasant for Maxim, and he's managed his time very well. He's got the time necessary to figure out a way to hold this together. But I don't see a move off the top of my head here. I'm sure there's something, but I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. It's a lot trickier than it looks, and that's why Matlikov is taking his time. Although, again, okay, we did show that line, and as much as I said you were right, in the end, the position was opening up in a way that, okay, and he goes for it. Perhaps White will have to settle on a perpetual there. Matlikov is going to call the bluff and see what Vallejo Pons has here. Does he take and keep the pressure, or does he go for this big simplification?
No, I think he
by the
takes
way,
on A4. White is not risking.
Sam Sevian did absolutely blow Rasmus Svane off the board. And again, all due respect to Rasmus, who had a great road to get here. He qualified his way in to the Chess.com Global Championship round of 64. But Svane's effort was in Svane, as Danya would say, for the awkward pun. And he will be joining the list of players going home on this day one of the round of 64.
But a handsome $5,000 paycheck to boot. And a tough first-round pairing for Rasmus. Sam Sevian has been in phenomenal form these last couple of months. And by the way, Vallejo did decide to trade everything on E6, but it's not because I think he wants to give a draw easily. I think he thinks that this queen endgame is unpleasant for Black, and it most certainly is. Maxime needs to find a few more accurate defensive moves. And he might have just made a mistake.
He doesn't. He plays king of 7, but what's the move here? This is I'm surprised to see the eval bar go up so strongly for White when you're still down a pawn. Wait, no, you're not down a pawn. I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
You're not down a pawn. The pawns are split.
Queen E5, Queen D2, and then maybe just like King G2. Oh, what a classy move by Paco, just overprotecting the F2 pawn, Danny, and making sure that taking the sting out of any possible queen move by Black.
I really like that. And note the engine did too. What a classy move to find and maintain your edge. It puts Black in almost like a fancy kind of zugzwang, right? If the queen leaves the protection of the C pawn, watch out for queen check and takes. If you leave anything in the center on pre, White will capitalize.
And what's also concerning, Queen A3, Queen F3 check, that might be a losing pawn endgame. That's a hard endgame to properly evaluate with a minute on the clock. So, man, all of a sudden the landscape has changed and Paco has pretty decent winning chances here.
He does, and note the time. He went from being down a couple minutes to up almost a minute when it matters most. Huge moment right here for Paco, the nickname for Francisco Vallejo Pons, for those who don't know. I want to go back to the game that I feel, a lot of fans are probably watching. Some of you might have already switched over to the Chess Bra coverage of Eric Hansen's game. Of course, we give shout out to all of our streamers. Amon Hamilton is focused solely on Eric Hansen's battle over at their channel. But let's quickly jump over there and make sure that we see these critical moments, because again, if Eric draws this game and just holds, he takes a 1-game lead into the final of 4 games. All he would need is a draw in that scenario. So absolutely huge that he's managed to lock up the board and create a spot. This could be Lequang Liam's last chances here.
Yeah, to win with Black on demand against an on-form Eric is going to be a monumental task, and the position is completely locked up here, Danny. Now, I wouldn't say that it's over. What Lim needs to try to do is maybe funnel his knights into Black's territory through the king side, but that's why Eric puts his bishop on d8. He covers the h4 square, and I don't see any other entry points in this position.
What's funny is the only other suggestion I had was to put knights on f2 and e3 and try to sacrifice over here. Which is actually still possible.
I think I understand what he wants. He wants to put the one knight on a4 and the other knight on d3 and infiltrate through c5. But Eric says, no. I'm getting my knight to d7 and my king on c6, and I am putting everything I've got on that c5 square. This is a draw.
Do you think when he says no, he does it in that accent? No. Do you think that's in his head? Do you think he says it in that accent that you just did?
Well, don't Canadians talk like? Oh no, that's British accent.
That's
no.
Hey bud, who's gonna be dancing in Toronto? Hey bud. Here we go.
It's not
All
gonna
right.
happen, eh?
Well, no, I think it's no. Right now we've got no for the chess brawl guarding the c5 square. I think he's going to hold this and put Lequan Liem in the very tough spot of having to win on command with black. What an absolutely stellar performance it has been through 3 games. Knock on wood if you're Eric Hansen fans here in the round of 64.
But Eric Hansen fans are going to be on the edge of their seats. There's a lot of money on the line, Danny, in this final game. And Eric, he's got to be solid. But the worst thing to do when you're in a must-draw situation or you're in a situation where a draw wins you the tournament or the match is to play for a draw. That's the common wisdom. You want to play normally the way you would in any other game. And Eric, he's so good at containing his nerves. I mean, he is Canadian after all. So close to
they don't get too rattled
victory.
up there being America's hat, you know. They stay pretty warm. But all right, we jokes aside, we love all our fans tuning in from around the world. Thanks for being with us, whether you're watching from Canada or anywhere else. Almost 7,500 on Twitch, more than 1,000 of you across a couple different YouTube channels. Still a lot of action ahead. 10 seconds though now for Eric Hansen. Look at that, he did it. He rinse and repeat.
There are literally
to avoid dandruff.
There's zero ideas for white. Just zero. Black just goes king c6, b5, c6 ad nauseum.
And he did just that. Holds the draw by holding the c5 square. Bob's your uncle. If you're Lequan Liem. Oh, but we got to switch quickly over here. Vallejo pawns is under 5 seconds, and so is Matlikov. What happened here? Things.
What happened?
Turned around a little bit.
Well, it's still a result game because.
Yeah. This is wild. If white could somehow advance the g-pawn, but white might get himself in trouble.
Yeah, but Vallejo can draw any moment by trading queens here, but he didn't want to. I think he's almost flirting with playing for a win. No, I think we're going to see a repetition here. Whoa!
Yeah. Oh, no, he wants more.
He's playing
he pushes
for
the g-pawn. Here we go.
But why did Maxime not repeat? I guess Maxime
D3.
also wants to win queen.
Oh, he misses queen d1. Queen d1 and queen a1 was the win.
God, a queen a1. Oh, my land.
He missed it.
Don't take the pawn.
He missed it.
No, it's still
it's over. Queen d2.
Mate.
Oh, my gosh.
Holy smokes.
My gosh.
Oh, look at Vallejo. He's devastated. What was
Dude,
that?
Oh.
Incredulous smile. How did that happen?
It's one that you have to laugh off if you're Vallejo, because at this point you have no choice, but that is not one that you find very funny at all. Oh, man, especially when you know, all of you who were here, just quickly show you, it was Vallejo who was pushing for a win. He could have checked. He could have just kept the draw, right? He had check, and he could have just repeated. But he wanted more, Danya. He pushed g6,
dude,
and then
C3,
blunders with
That's
d3.
an amazing move by Maxime. C3.
Yeah, c3 was quite the move, creating a trap. And the point, everyone, is that on check, this would have been the more accurate way to do it. The point is, if you take the pawn, there's a skewer, and this was the tactical idea that Vallejo missed. He sees it a little too late, because after queen c4 and queen a2, he suddenly realized it. So rather than lose his queen, he checkmates himself, and Vallejo pawns goes down in the time scramble to Maxime Matlikov. OMG's snaps.
What a way to kick off our second batch of matches for today. And Danny, we're going to be on the edge of our seats in the next game because Eric Hansen, in a situation where a draw yields him the first round victory. Oh, well, man.
By the way, we didn't show the final moments of that game, as we'll be getting the scoreboard updated. I don't think we have the most recent results, so I'll just tell you fans what they are, which is Jospin won. So he is now up 2-1 versus Kirill Alexeenko. And I'll show that real quick. I brought it up just to show the final moment here, Danya. It was a blunder of the rook for Alexeenko.
Oh, no, he didn't. King H2,
he did.
Really?
Oh, no, you didn't. Oh, yeah, you did.
And the sad thing, Danny, is if he goes rook d1 instead, I think he's got enough counterplay for the draw. Rook d7 check is the threat. Knight g3, king h2. And I think that black has no easy path forward here. Shocking moment. But Kirill's opening experience with white has been an abject failure. And right now he's going to have to repeat his success from game 2. But what a tough situation he and Lekwang find themselves in.
I was just about to say, we've got the updated scores here. Let's talk about these situations, the tough ones for a few players and the great ones for others. As we said, Sam Sevian is the first one to move on to the round of 32, at least as far as the set of games that started at 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for being with us. So he's moving on. That match is over. Jose Martinez has Alexeenko against the wall. Eric Hansen only needs a draw to shock the world in some ways, or at least 66% of the bracket fillers by beating Lekwang Liem. And then we got two matchups that still have a lot of chess ahead. Esipenko versus Bassem Amin and Francisco Vallejo Pons and Maxim Matlikov. So, OMG, so much to go. I think we will really dial in and focus on Jose Martinez and Kirill Alexeenko along with Hansen and Lekwang Liem. So don't worry, fans. That is where our focus will be. Speaking of focus, don't go anywhere. Or if you are going to go somewhere, do it right now. Get your snack. Do whatever else you got to do. Danya and I will be back with more commentary for the round of 64. The Chess.com Global Championship rolls on.
A player worth taking note of, Kirill Alexeenko made his presence known a couple years ago as the youngest player at the 2020 candidates at just 22 years of age. He had punched that ticket with an impressive third-place finish at the Grand Swiss a year earlier. In the Chess.com Global Championships thus far, Alexeenko's journey has already seen its share of fireworks. With less than a half dozen play-in events remaining, Alexeenko found himself in an Armageddon game against Marco Rila, the winner advancing to the CGC round of 64.
We're going to Armageddon on the most unbelievable turn of events I've ever seen.
Unrattled and bold, Alexeenko made a risky bid of just 5 minutes to his opponent's bid of 10.
5 minutes?
What?
What?
What kind of a bid is this?
The gamble paid off, and Alexeenko was able to secure the victory.
Kirill Alexeenko goes through, guarantees a spot in the knockout stage.
With a spot now secured in the main bracket, Alexeenko finds himself in a group featuring some pretty significant names. Alexeenko may need to tap into the fearless approach he took in qualifying to make a serious run to Toronto.
boy, do we have drama. One player already went home here, at least in terms of the games that started at 9 a.m. Pacific. 2 players are facing elimination right now. Laquang Liem and Kirill Alexeenko have to win on command, both of them, in order to keep their hopes alive, Danya.
Man, their work is cut out for them. It's been impressive performances all around. I am so impressed with the way that Eric has handled himself. Yes, he was the recipient of an incredibly lucky break in the first game, a blunder, a one-move blunder, but the way that he's held it together and put Laquang Liem in a critical situation deserves a lot of praise. Same, of course, goes for Jose Martinez, with Kirill Alexeenko needing a win with the black pieces as well.
Well, we see featured chat coming in. Eric only needs a draw to move on. You are right, chat. Keep your comments coming. We'll keep you on the show. The games are getting underway here. There are 5 of them, as we said, in this round going, but we're probably going to focus mostly on the 2 elimination battles. Wait, what?
Whoa. No, I'm saying H5?
5?
I've seen H5 in virtually every position by this point, but not in this one.
Look at Eric,
1,
head
2,
in
3,
hand,
move
like
3.
Okay, well, we said it, everybody. There are 2 players facing elimination. Laquang Liem with the black pieces and Kirill Alexeenko also with the black pieces. So both players have massive uphill battles. But H5, what a risky way to go for the dub, right? You're creating a dubious position for black with a very weakening kingside move, but you're doing it to try to get your opponent to do what Eric is doing, which is spend some time on the clock.
Now that I think about it, I think I have seen H5 before. And the idea is not quite as outlandish as it may seem. Now, I'm not sure if the idea is to play H4 or if it's to play E6 and then G5, G4 and just start a kingside pawn storm, because who needs development, right, Danny? I mean, that's not developing pieces isn't cool anymore. That's not what we do anymore.
That's not what the cool kids do anymore, right? I mean, I don't know who started this trend. Look at this. Alpha zero lives, right? Rushing the H-pawn. Okay. Again, for all of the kids watching the show and or beginner players, I want to be very clear before I go on and justify this H-pawn advance. This is a bad position for black. This is breaking principles. You're playing on the wing before you've controlled the center and developed your pieces, and there's a reason the computer likes white. That said, Danya, let's talk about the ideas. From a practical point of view, you induce H3, which if you do eventually get that assault you talked about with the pawn storm, you've created a way to open up the board, right? And maybe start an attack. And in a must-win situation, all bets are off, right? Last game of the year, Dan can't hold anything back now.
Yeah, but the reason I like this from the point of view that, yes, you're generating winning chances. The problem is that you're playing Eric Hansen. And I've played Eric in hundreds of blitz games, probably thousands. And every time I play an offbeat opening, Eric punishes me. He's such a principled player. You do not want to get a situation where you violated a bunch of principles and you give him a big initiative. That is the worst thing you can do against Eric, who's such a gifted tactical player and so good at thinking on his feet and improvising. So, Danny, Laquang starts to think now, that's not a very good sign. If you're thinking after white castles, I mean, what were you expecting to do?
It was H3 that put him on the clock, but you're right. If you're already in a position where castles and H3 was enough to call the H-pawn bluff, then what are we doing here, right? This could be, it goes from, where you start, complimenting someone for being practical and going for it to saying they're clearly on tilt. That's what we see here.
Yeah, this is like that feeling when you decide to climb the steps of like the Notre Dame and you're 75 steps in, you're like, wait, why was I doing this to begin? Like, what was the point of this again? Why did I put my pawn on H4?
At that point, you've gone so far, you're like, I might as well keep on going.
You can't. Exactly. Knight F6 by black. I mean, now he starts developing, but the situation is dire. That H4 pawn is a huge weakness. And Danny, you're not playing G5 anytime soon, especially if white pushes the D pawn out of the way, controlling G5 even more intensely with the bishop.
And the point is, white can play anything here. White could play, I'll just show quickly, E5 and maintain edge. Probably rook E1, maintain the edge. You could probably even play D4 and maintain the edge and just call black's bluff. Be like, are you really going to create this type of situation? Or even D3. Yeah, the computer likes all of these moves. And the point is, black is on full tilt, has to win. maybe a psychological edge of doing something so weird comes back to play to pay dividends later on, but I highly doubt it. And I think we're going to see the chess bra break about 66% of the brackets.
I don't like queen b6 at all. In these positions, the queen rarely belongs on b6 because after knight c3, the queen is right in the line of fire of the knight. Knight d5, knight a4, all sorts of shenanigans could happen to the queen.
Yeah. This bishop can even come back to f1, and you've sort of uncastled by hand here. You've brought the bishop back out of the way, and you can continue to do things like knight c3 and eventually e5. And okay, well, we don't want to rub any more salt in Lequang Liem's wounds. I think we'll come back to this and see how it plays out. By the way, Eric just playing natural moves and going to get a great position. But I want to go to the other game that also has a win or go home stakes on the table. That is Kirill Alexeenko's chances as black versus Jose Martinez. Also a great position for the person who's up on the scoreboard.
Yeah, no, similarly, this is a hedgehog, but the knight on c6 is super misplaced. Knight d5. He kind of walks into this knight d5 idea. I guess he wants to move his queen and responds to it. But Jose has arranged his pieces perfectly with that third rank piece arrangement. He's got the idea of a rook lift, rook f3, rook h3 as well. Could not ask for a better start to the game if you're Jose Martinez.
This is one of those positions you teach beginners where you say, I mean, it's not quite that position everyone knows with the bishops out and the knights, but this is about as good as it gets when you say, hey, if you've got a whole bunch of moves, gain space, control all the center squares, put your pieces on great squares to support them, and you've got a big advantage. And this is just a very easy spot for white.
For sure. And Jose choosing a very tame strategy, playing solid, putting the queen on e2, coordinating his rooks. Yeah, this is going to be a really, really tough task for Kirill. But, all the pieces are still on the board. And at least he guarantees himself a long middle game.
That's true. And I will give credit here to the idea of queen b8 and queen a8. This is a very typical way to play a hyper-modern type of position for those wondering. It's like a hedgehog. You have this bishop on this diagonal. And one of the things you have to remember is that despite all the optics of black's position being bad, and white does have more space, black doesn't have any positional weaknesses. So if white slips even once with the wrong pawn advance, often black's pieces can kind of jump to life. And so there are, I was just recommending a book on these types of positions on Twitter to the hashtag chesspunks. The Dynamic Chess Strategy by Suba is a great example of how to play passive positions and feel the tension of your pieces kind of bursting to life when you're given an opportunity. These positions are still full of tactics. That's my point.
Do you know what car the Romanian Grandmaster drives and the author of the book? A Subaru. Number 3. Third time's the charm. No? Okay, no.
Okay, but seriously, the book by Mihai Suba is a great one if you want to check it out. Dynamic Chess Strategy for all of those adult improvers out there. Really, it is an important skill to develop, to learn how to play positions with less space, but don't panic. Yes, your pieces are kind of cramped, but learn how to maneuver and make subtle improvements. All of that said, if white goes all in and goes for an attack, and the space is used well, this could get very, very dangerous for black. So.
Indeed it could, and the maneuvering continues. But I think the next 5-10 moves, at least in this game, are going to be slow maneuvering moves as both sides try to prepare for the eventual opening of the center.
Yep. I see chat yelling at me, Chess Society. No, not Chess Society, someone else. A humble legend wants us to go to the Esipenko game. I think I will oblige and quickly check in with that. We are going to be focusing mostly on Lequang Liem and Esipenko's battles to keep their CGC hopes alive. But let's quickly check on the other 2 games as well. If you were in earlier and then left and came back, Sam Sevian has already moved on with a 3-0 victory over Rasmus Svane. All right, but Danya, what do you got here? Bassem Amin, white versus Andrei Esipenko.
No, this looks like a very pleasant position, at least optically, for Bassem. He's more active. The pawn on c6 is a serious weakness, but at the same time, you've got the bishop on g2, which is locked in by your own pawn. And for the time being, Andrei is still pretty solid. It's a very, very complex middle game, but I would definitely prefer white here.
Yep.
Again, at least
so
visually.
What's a plan for white when you've got you've got pressure here.
Yeah.
Black never really wants to push it because d5 becomes open. So you've kind of done your job on the queen side to tie down the queen. How are you overloading Black in this position? Are you doubling rooks on the f file to create a second weakness or problem, or is there something else that White would try to maneuver for here?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that question because I don't have a clear answer. One move that comes to
Sorry,
mind.
I went into how do we learn from this moment mode rather than awkward cringy jokes mode.
No, that's totally acceptable. Knight a2 actually came to mind for whatever reason, trying to get the knight around to b4. And one additional idea is to provoke c5. If you can provoke c5, then you can either return to c3 as you're indicating, or you could meet c5 with b4 and try to all-out assault Black's queen side while Andre's pieces are still relatively uncoordinated. So knight a2 comes to mind. But you're right. Rook f2, rook f1 is a more mundane kind of standard stock plan to put pressure on f7.
I'm nothing if I'm not mundane. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you're so mundane. That's really the first word that comes to mind to describe you.
never a spicy word or controversial moment for this guy in his life. Totally a mundane experience. Okay, well, we'll see. By the way, we see Esipenko chewing there. Time for a little snack attack. You know what? I could go for an RX bar at the break. I might hit that.
Yeah, I'm going for the same snack in all the breaks. It's this Thai chili peppers from Trader Joe's, and my mouth is on fire, but I like that feeling.
Oh my God, you are always one step away from TMI, which is why I like you. Okay. All right. We're gonna let this one be, and I want to check in on the only other game we haven't looked at, so that we've done our due diligence and can maybe focus on the potential elimination matchup. So let's head over to the game between Maxime Matlikov and Francisco Vallejo Pons. I saw my pronunciation was being called out by Chad at the break. Sorry, I lost my focus there. Okay.
Strange position. Both sides castling queenside.
It's funny. I look at this position and I like White so much, but the eval bar says no. It's close to equal. What am I not understanding? Asking for a friend.
No, I totally agree. I was going to say that White is. It looks like White is overwhelmingly better.
Thank you.
But I think it's the lack of targets.
Yeah.
I think that the redeeming factor here for Black is the lack of targets. You know, Black can play King B8. Yes, F5 looks very scary, but again, it's the question like, how is White ultimately going to make progress? Black could even ignore the move F5 and just play GF, GF, and like Rook H8, for example, which he plays, by the way, right now.
Okay.
But okay.
That makes sense. I guess, yeah, despite the bishop pair and the big space advantage, kind of similar to what I was highlighting in the other sort of hyper-modern hedgehog position. Black doesn't have any real weaknesses to speak of, though. Even these double pawns are perfectly safe because how do you attack them? So, okay, that's why the computer says, you know, this position is still very playable for both sides. Zeros is what we have in the eval. And
zeros is crazy, Danny, because this looks, I would bet a silver dollar that White is at least a little bit better here, but I guess not.
A silver dollar? Why not a $2 bill, Abe Lincoln?
Man, I accidentally gave up the $2 bill that was in my wallet, and I've been upset ever since.
I was going to say, if you're going to start throwing around silver dollars, why not a $2 bill there, Abe Lincoln, and whatever. Anyway, all right, Queen F3 played. I do like this move. Ooh, I do like that highlight. Look at that. Oh, a new color
orange is
enters
sleek.
the
Oh, and the red?
Oh, okay. Hello. I
Orange
like it. Here comes Bishop E3.
Orange is the most underutilized color for highlighting squares. It's low-key my favorite.
Holding the control key and highlighting will be the new thing henceforth with. You heard it here at this point in the broadcast. Let's move on, though. I want to go back. Oh, my God. The position between Hansen and Lequang Liem is exactly what the doctor ordered. This is spicy. Hansen calling Lequang Liem's bluff with this ridiculous H-pawn advance, and he's crushing him right now.
No, that was a terrible, terrible decision. It was unnecessary because against the Rossolimo, you could play G6 or E6, and you're basically guaranteed a combative game. There are no forced drawing lines there. So I think Lequang, you know, I like the spirit, but I feel like the logistics of what he's done has just been a little bit too crazy. Yeah. But if he can castle queenside, if he can get his bishop from d7 maybe to c6, he does have the bishop pair, Danny, and Eric has a bit of a hard time getting his own bishop out of the gates. Maybe b3, maybe d3, but for the time being, White has not completed his development. The position remains complicated, even though objectively I know the engine is screaming that White is already completely winning.
Yeah, no need for analysis. I'm just going to quickly show everyone where we left. After bishop c4 was played, e6, e5 led to the position we see on the board. The exchange of the knight for bishop in the old-fashioned way is where we stand right now. Eric, okay, so Eric can take g7. He can also try to do one of your moves, b3 or d3, to develop the bishop. I feel like if I was playing White, just because of what you said, I was going to say I would have just played d3. I would have not done this. I would have just gotten developed and left the tension. But Eric goes all in, and this has become much more spicy.
Well, I think the fact that he only needs a draw has really influenced that choice, because now you get opposite colored bishops. And if you can like snag the pawn on h4 and then trade queens, for example, you're not going to lose that ensuing endgame. But Black is not going to agree to a queen trade. And in fact, the pressure on g2, as you're indicating, Danny, could get very, very concerning with queen c6 or bishop c6 on deck.
Well, and we've talked about opposite code bishop positions a lot, right? When you have opposite code bishops, often the initiative can get away from you, because if it does become a battle of one color complex, the other bishop is simply a bystander, just observing his own king's fate. And so I'm really nervous about this, honestly. I feel like taking g7 and playing knight f6 for Eric was not, it wasn't what the engine liked, and it's not the road to a kind of a lopsided victory. Easier said than done, obviously, but if you combine that with the time, he's now down 4 minutes. This is becoming one of those games, Donnie, where you look back and go, oh man, Eric maybe squandered a big opportunity.
Yeah, and one of the most annoying feelings is when, you can sense that you're better, you can sense how close you are to achieving the desired result, and yet there is no forced way, let's say, to get the queens off the board. You know that you're going to have to play carefully for the next couple of moves, and Eric could start to get nervous here as he's down 4 minutes on the clock, and like Kwong, I think, is more hopeful than he's been for this entire game.
We see a lot of Go Erics. We just saw that last feature chat. Are there any Kwong Liem fans in chat? If you are, let it be known. Maybe we'll feature you on the show. I also saw a comment that people like this default orange and red arrow. Maybe we can do a quick chat poll, because if you want to change a default setting, those are things I do on camera that make Eric, my other Eric, co-CEO here, he gets really excited when we do things like that. He gets really mad. So let's do it. If you want us to change default, let us know, and we'll do that. I'd love to know what you think. All right, over to the other elimination battle. Let's do it. Martinez versus... This one is also starting to shift the other direction. Alexeenko holding on.
And he's up a pawn now. I think Jose has given up. Which pawn has he given up? He's given up the F pawn. And he's done that for the purpose of a kingside attack, but I don't see the promised attack. Like, if you go bishop h6, Black can respond with f6 to cover the key g5 square. And Black is definitely better. There's insufficient compensation. But of course, the position remains tremendously complicated here.
Yeah, I'm staring at the position. I think we do need to bring up the analysis board for this, because, Danya, I'm staring at this position and I'm wondering, where did the F pawn go? Like, I know it was on F4 and it got stolen. Okay, so we left the position here. A lot of things were looking pretty good for White, if you remember, a nice space advantage. And the F pawn, see, I'm used to the F pawn advancing, but usually you get something for it. You break up a structure, but that didn't happen here. So the knight came in. Oh, he blundered it on c3.
Oh, he blundered
that was all it was.
Oh, he blundered it. He definitely blundered it.
I had a feeling, you were saying it must have been a sacrifice. Yeah, I had a feeling it was a blunder, because I was like, what did White get for it? I'm not buying the sacrifice when we basically have the F pawn having left the board and White got nothing for it. And now we're in this position where here comes Black. A5 is a nice way to try to create further play.
Bishop A4.
This
maybe.
is,
but I think You're just not stopping bishop a4, though, which I would play if I were white. I think that's why Jose dropped his bishop down to c2. So the biggest chance for Jose is to create counterplay on both sides of the board. Use the light squared bishop to pressure the queen side. Use the dark squared bishop and the queen to put pressure on the king side. Try to make a timely bishop f6 or bishop h6.
I like that. Bishop f6, knight coming in, bishop h6. You did highlight f6 as a way to do this, despite the heartbreak of, if you listen closely, you can hear all Ben Feingold fans around the world crying every time Danya suggests f6. But I love your point. Bishop a4, a little bit of tension here, a little bit of tension here, do a little dance, get down tonight. Okay. So as excited as I was about the pawn blunder, and I do think at least if you're Alexeenko, you're happy that this is a mess because you have to win or you're going home. I'm with you. There's still a lot of practical pressure here for white.
Absolutely. And we've had a couple of moves played in the game. The bishop is on a4. We had a trade, and the other bishop does come to f6. So Jose checks the items off his checklist, and we get a knight versus bishop position where probably white's best chance is to put pressure now on black's weak pawns on the queen side and in the center. And whoa, queen potentially coming to h6.
Hey, it's not just a hat rack over here. A little bit of a checkmate idea. I like it. Queen e3,
Ooh.
Hit this pawn, hit this square. That's actually got Alexeenko thinking. But I liked your point of f6, and now I'm going to raise you one. Even f5 is an opportunity now. Black is up a pawn. If you can defend the 7th rank while opening up diagonals for that light square bishop, I still like Alexeenko's chances. You said this match was going to Armageddon. We'll see if you're proven right, Prophet, that you didn't earn that nickname for no good reason.
I sure hope so. But what worries me about Kirill's chance is just how flimsy his position is here, Danny. There's just so many ways to blunder and fritter away the advantage. Bishop a8, though, I think that's an excellent move. Active defense. The best defense is counterattack. And black aims at the c4 pawn, trying to put that knight on f3 out of commission. If you can force white to play a move like knight d2 or maybe even rook c1, if you can force white to get passive, then that gives black the breathing room that he needs to improve his position and eradicate his weaknesses on the queen side.
Agreed. Well, I think you're going to be proven to have earned your nickname again. Danya Naroditsky, the Prophet, for those who don't know the story, just look up XQC gets checkmated by Moist Critical, and then hear the stories of the internet from the legendary first Pog champs.
One of the best moments of my life.
One of the best moments of your life was that.
No, really.
Was that very rated R moment. Anyway.
Yep.
So I think Alexeenko stole that F pawn. I think Martinez's chances are slipping. And again, just to point out the obvious, while we have analysis of, if Queen H6 is played, you get really excited. But again, black can even, you can play F6 for the record for Feingold fans, but you can also just play a simple move. And this move is always met by F6, and you still have all these pawns hanging. So there really isn't enough firepower here. And therefore, knight d2 played, like Danya said, this is not what you want if you're playing white to have to start to defend.
No, and Jose trying to do everything he can to stay active. Rook f6, preparing to double on the f-file. Now, obviously, the f7 pawn is incredibly well defended. So now I think the best defensive approach for white is to adopt sort of a semi-waiting strategy. Try to make the surface level improvements that you can, but then at the end of it, just sort of wait for black to, to put his cards on the table. But what worries me is the prospect of b5. The position opens up. That knight, which is so passive, Danny, is not going to be capable of handling the ensuing complications and keeping all of the entry points protected.
Yep. We talk about it a lot, that in knight versus bishop battles, there are different factors in the position that can tell you whether the knight will be better or the bishop. One of the factors that really favors the bishop is any type of game where there's still pawn structures on both sides of the board. That means you're in a position where the knight often is a bit of a donkey and trying to keep up with a beastly bishop in positions where you're opening up here, you have diagonals here. So that's exactly, even, I mean, not now, but even d5 at some point. If this position opens up and there are no tactical consequences for black, this knight only feels more and more intimidated by the bishop in these kind of positions. So speaking of being intimidated, I think that Eric bought the bluff over there against Lequang Liem a little bit. That position is getting weirder and weirder, and I don't like the Chessbrah's chances to make this a clean one. I know the evals still say White's okay, but this feels so scary.
Yeah, and as Mr. Swiftickle says, Hansen deciding to play without his queenside. This game, he finally prepares to bring that bishop out of the game. And at this point, he cannot afford to, keep his queenside asleep. He needs to activate his remaining pieces, but you're indicating, Danny, bishop g5 is a very, very nasty threat.
He only has 2 minutes, although right as I... Usually the commentators curse us real. Right as I say I'm not thrilled about Eric's position, he finally plays d3 and finally gets the bishop out. And the more I see that, I'm like, all right, if he gets bishop g5, just to show fans, if bishop g5, rook d7, queen h8 is a very real problem.
Yeah, trade queens, and White's not going to lose that.
I would almost play bishop g5, Danya, and make him trade queens. Bishop g5 forces queen d4, and then you have an endgame where you can get a draw. And he does it. I think that's a huge move for Eric, actually.
Yeah, queen d4 is absolutely forced because rook d7 gets checkmated in one move, queen h8. But the one redeeming thing here for Lekwang is the fact that his pawn structure, Danny, on the queen side is, of course, superior to Eric's king side structure. So maybe in some distant future you create a passer. I don't see this happening, though. I think Eric's holding this 99 times out of 100.
No, you're right, totally. It's not over yet, but I'm still just as hyped as I was when bishop g5. I think this was a huge idea. It forced the queens off the board, makes it a lot easier to play with this minute and a half on the clock. And Chessbrah fans are literally holding their breath. We'll see if they can do it for a full 6 minutes, which I hear Navy SEALs can do. If you can hold your breath for that long, maybe consider going out for your country.
But the clock, Eric has burned a minute deciding whether to take on d3 or to play c3 or even to play rook d1. So the clock might be Lekwang Lim's only chance if he can complicate this game somehow and pose more problems.
Yeah, but it's so easy. Rook c1, king f2, B4. The rook can come over. Like, again, it's not over, but bishop f6 comes in, and everything is being held, and very difficult to see Eric losing this.
And if black plays b6, it runs into b4 to make matters worse. I mean, black could simply end up being worse here.
Okay, only a minute on the clock for the Chessbrah. As you said, perhaps Lekwang's only chance now is on time. I think we're having the opposite in the Alexeenko game. We're not going there, but I want fans to know. I think that Danya is going to be right. I think at least one of these matchups is going to give us Armageddon because Alexeenko looks okay. But I think Hansen is going to be dancing. Hansen going to be dancing into the round of 32.
I do agree in general, but a great decision by Lekwang to sacrifice a pawn in order to preserve his pawn majority and preserve piece activity. He wants to play bishop d5 and king c6. And Danny, Eric is not totally out of the woods just yet.
I'm with you, actually. Now that I see that, he's created this bishop d5 2-on-1 advantage, so you can create a passer. So he does it. He's going to put the king here, as Danya said.
Maybe Eric should consider playing c6 to open up some real estate on the queen side, but he doesn't. He keeps his pawn. A5, b4, b3. The pawn runs fast.
We're coming back to the thing you highlighted earlier, though. Black's mobility on the queen side versus White's inability to mobilize a pawn majority is the one thing Lekwang still has on the board. He's got the time as well, but on the board, there's still that problem. So Hansen is trying to fix that by getting going over here.
Yeah, active defense is definitely the best approach here because Lekwang's going to push his pawn to b3 right about now. And the other important thing for White is that the bishop on c1 is actually a very good defensive piece. You would rather, I guess, have the bishop on f6 on that diagonal, but this is the next best thing.
But, dude, do you really play rook c3 here and allow rook a2? You can't. You have to keep the rook. You have to keep the rook on the 7th rank, but then you lose. Oh my God, he plays rook c3.
Rook a2. Rook a2. Uh-oh. I think Eric's going to lose this. He's lost control of the game.
No.
Oh, b2 is unstoppable. He's going to have to give his bishop
It's unstoppable. Away. I was just going to say, do you really play this? Because that's the human move, but it's a blunder.
Rook takes g2. Rook takes g2, and Eric with another blunder. He also gave up the pawn.
Oh, man.
No, this is just total collapse by Eric. Unbelievable.
What he needed to do was call Black's bluff and just play rook d2 and bishop b2 and give up the pawn. It was very hard to do. I had a feeling, and he falls for it, and we are going to have an Armageddon battle. Lequang Liem on the way to winning on command with Black here in this matchup.
This is crazy. I mean, he plays h5. We think it's basically over. Then that decision to play knight f6 check was the big step in the wrong direction. And this game is not totally over. I mean, if Eric can somehow miraculously trade the last remaining pawns, then it will be a theoretical draw. But Lequang is not going to allow that in a million years.
Well, that's a great move, too. You're threatening rook
clinical.
e4, so now the c pawn will fall. He takes it. By the way, we are going to quickly go from this game when it's over to the game between Martinez and Alexeenko. So we have another game that where a player is fighting for their life, but it's hard to know where to go. I also want to remind everybody, you can go to chess.com/events to follow the other games. There is a battle between Amin and Esipenko, as well as Vallejo Pons versus Matlikov. So much action here in the round of 64, still ongoing.
It's been incredible. And Lequang is just like 1 or 2 moves away here from securing the victory and taking this to Armageddon. I think king e7 in this position is game.
I was just laughing at someone who said that my bracket is still alive. So we have at least one person rooting for Lequang Liem, and that's someone who picked him in their bracket. I wouldn't be surprised, Danya, to quickly comment on that. Mm-hmm. Even if some people took Hansen, I think the people who took Lequang Liem, probably more of them might have even taken Lequang Liem into multiple rounds. I'm going to switch over to the other game, but I think that's a huge save for many people's brackets.
Oh, it is. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And, Eric is just going to have to put that behind him. So difficult to recover, given how close he was. I mean, even that end game at first looked drawn, and the decision to sack a pawn was absolutely huge. But here we have the other must-win game. Looks like Kirill is still doing very well, but it's far, far from over. White has managed to keep his major pieces relatively active and Black's clock low. Bishop g4, queen e3.
Black is now under a minute as well, joining Martinez there. Only 20 seconds for the player playing white.
Knight
b4
d3
allows the knight. This is going to be one of those games where the eval bar gives us a heart attack. So fans, forgive the fact that there is no world where we're able to comment on every potential blunder. This is going to be nutty.
Yeah, you're going to have to prepare already at this point for the eval bar to be gyrating and going backwards and forwards, because that is clearly what's going to happen. But this is exactly what Jose wanted, given the position he had 10, 15 moves ago. It's a time scramble. His pieces are active, and Kirill needs to be very careful not to lose the B pawn. And if he loses it, his advantage basically evaporates. And I think it is evaporating.
Martinez, so good when few seconds remain. One of the best in the world, just absolutely. And here we see him outplaying his opponent again when it comes down to the final seconds.
Yeah, rook takes b3 incoming.
Yep, so he defends, also threatening bishop c2. I like that idea.
Great move. Actually, the only way to keep winning chances alive.
Yeah.
Knight
to b4, though. Look at this. If you get the knight in and queen h6, now look what happens.
Oh, this is painful.
Dude,
I don't see him pulling this out.
From a practical perspective, so much harder to be Black here, I think.
Oh, look how quickly rook d2, and
rook
now
d2.
You can't play b2. It's over.
Here comes knight d5 and knight f6.
It's all over.
Holy shenanigans, Danya. You were right that one match would go to Armageddon, but you were wrong about which match it was, I think.
And queen takes c5, queen h6, I think, just ends the game. Instead, he gives a check on f6 and a check on h6.
What? No. What is going on here? This is crazy.
Kirill's like getting away with his king. It's still not over.
He's getting away with murder here. Took the pawn and nothing has happened to this king.
4 seconds for Jose, but he's got a repetition.
Oh, he could have just taken the repetition, and he should have.
Now queen d8, king e6, still alive.
Queen e8 now. Oh no,
where's the mate?
Wait, where's the win?
Where's the mate? 1 second.
What? What is he doing? What is he doing? Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
He back! Queen D7! Queen D7!
He's got it. Queen D7 and Queen C8. Hey, 1 second move!
He's gonna flag! He's gonna flag!
Oh my god!
No!
What just happened there? Martinez
D7!
loses his mind on camera there.
Oh my god. That is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
That was the wildest finish. We have to just show those final moments. Again,
oh my god.
The easiest out, everyone. Martinez forgot his match situation. He could have just probably repeated here and it's over.
Yeah.
Instead he takes, but he's still totally winning.
It's fine. Rook D5.
You know what he missed, Danya?
Rook D5.
Danya, I think he thought he had Queen D7 and Rook F2 and he forgot about the Queen.
Oh, that's entirely possible.
I think that's what it was. So he took and then realized he didn't have a win on the spot with Rook F2 and then settles and the whole game turns around.
No, but why did he flag here? I mean, Queen 8, Queen D7 in the final position, Danny, is game over. Queen D7, and then you take the rook with check.
I don't know what was going on. At some point, we
move.
might be able to ask Martinez. If he wins the match, maybe we get an interview and we get to ask him. Otherwise, I have no idea. Danya, you almost never see Martinez mishandle his time like that. This is one of the best time scramble players in the world.
And all he had to do in that position was just take on B3. Like, he didn't have to do anything because a draw is satisfactory. And Jose, but we know in these situations, people lose their minds. It's a combination of nerves with 3 seconds on the clock. And Kirill Alexeenko, the guy has 9 lives, and he's got to try to make it count in the Armageddon.
Just seeing chat go nuts here. Apparently you were right. We have 2 Armageddon matchups getting set. Is there a more exciting event in professional sports besides sudden death dodgeball? Obviously, sudden death dodgeball takes the cake. Then Armageddon chess. Let's remind everybody of where the standings are quickly before we head to a break and get set for said Armageddon battles. Wow. Winning on command, Kirill Alexeenko and Lequang Liem have sent these 2 matchups into an Armageddon tiebreaker. I don't even know, frankly, nor do I care what happened in the other matchups, honestly, at this point.
Nope.
But Matlikov got the victory and has Vallejo pawns up against the wall. While it looks like Alexeenko took down Basem Amin. So we're obviously going to be watching those matchups potentially to their conclusion in the next round as well, Danya. If Esipenko wins and Matlikov draws, we could get all 4 matches just over in the next round.
Yeah. No, it's been crazy and a difficult run here for Vallejo, who loses that heartbreaker in the first game. But I need this break just to get my head wrapped around what we just saw in Jose's game against Kirill. I can't wait for that Armageddon.
Armageddon bidding is happening as we speak. We will explain what the rules are to the Armageddon process, along with getting you set for all 4 games ahead. Don't go anywhere. It's the round of 64. The drama is real. Welcome to the jungle. The Global Chess Championship returns in a few.
Considered by some as the OG of chess streamers, Eric Hansen's Chessbra channel on Twitch has been entertaining chess fans and beyond for over a decade. However, Hansen's day job as a content creator has also come alongside some solid performances in competitive chess. Hansen threw his proverbial hat in the ring for the CGC early in qualifying, entering play-in event number 3.
God, the decision to sacrifice an exchange by Eric, so gutsy, so cold-blooded.
Adding some drama as usual, Hansen was allegedly playing on just 2 hours of sleep. Insomnia aside, Hansen was able to reach the playoff, bagging 7.5 points out of 9.
Oh my God, and Eric's gonna win! Eric is a magician, beast, demon, fill in the blank.
In the mini-match playoff, Hansen put enough together to land a spot in the round of 64.
And Eric Hansen finally betrays the smile, and he deserves to smile. What an unbelievable effort to qualify into the knockout by Eric Hansen. That is how hard it is, ladies and gentlemen.
In the main bracket, Hansen finds himself in a group with another pretty popular chess streamer, this one named Hikaru. Hansen's chances in the knockout stage may be slim, but if anyone can make the most of the opportunity, especially when it comes to making content, Hansen can.
The prizes seemed so high, I thought I was misreading it. And I'm excited.
Yep.
Hopefully I'll see you in Toronto.
Danya, we have 2 matches going to Armageddon, 2 more that could end this very round. The drama is real. It's for real. Danya, you ready? You're ready for all this?
Always ready for Armageddon. And there's going to be players who are happier than ever to get into the Armageddon, and their opponents who can't believe that they now have to play an Armageddon. Everybody's going to have to push the path behind them. But I love the fact that we have 2 Armageddon matches here to play.
Well, let's bring up the scoreboard to remind everybody of what Danya just said. The 2 players incredibly unhappy right now are Jose Martinez and Eric Hansen, who both held full point leads and both lost with the white pieces, and both at some point were completely winning in different dramatic fashionable ways. It was absolutely nutty. So don't go anywhere and don't miss any more of the Global Championship action. We'll talk more about the matchups between Esipenko and Amin, as well as Matlikov and Vallejo pawns in a little bit. But before we do, let's talk about the Armageddon, talk about what that format is and how it works. So both players are able to bid on how much time they're willing to take and take the black pieces. This is critical because both sides start with 15 minutes, and what you're saying is, hey, I want black and I want draw odds, but I'm only willing to risk so much time to do it. And if the game is drawn, black wins. So black is essentially playing for 2 results, but black is starting at a disadvantage. And let's remember, Danya, there's now no increment in the time, which is a big deal.
Yeah, that's a huge deal, and that really influences your bid, because with an increment, you'd be fine bidding 10 minutes, 11 minutes, but in the morning, Danny, I'm pretty sure we had an Armageddon between Rauf Mamedov and Nihal Sarin. If memory serves me right, Nihal bet 11 minutes, and he was that close to getting flagged. So generally, the sweet spot bid I found in most cases is between 11 minutes on the lower end and something like 13 minutes on the higher end if you're intent on being black. Of course, if you want to be white, then you should bid 15 minutes.
On that note, and we're going to get into it here, but we need to talk about that storyline because this is actually some fascinating data we just got from the staff. So you said the sweet spot. Guess what both players bid? Alexeenko and Lukwang Liem both bid 11 minutes and 59 seconds. They both bid the exact bid. And Martinez and Hansen both bid 12 minutes, 1 second over. So whatever these players have discussed maybe with their team or advice, there's clearly something that we don't know. Maybe we'll unpack that storyline as the CGC knockout rolls on, because to me that's fascinating. That literally tells us that the players have all sort of thought about this, and there must be some understanding of what that mathematical boundary is when you have exact bids from Alexeenko and Lukwang Liem and 1 second over from Martinez and Hansen. That's fascinating.
Wow. That's so interesting. They're all drinking the same Kool-Aid, but what are the odds of that? But again, we can see that most players, they want to bid somewhere in that range of 12 minutes. There's a sense in which that's enough time to warrant having draw odds and playing black. Here we go.
Alexeenko takes the 11 minutes. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, buddy, but just pointing out the clock. No. He takes the 11 minutes and 59 seconds. So that means Martinez will have that 3 minute and 1 second time advantage. The exact same thing, of course, will be on the clock to start the game between Lukwang Liem and Eric Hansen. I wonder if it was also by design. I can't wait to maybe talk to the players who win or just learn more about that. That's such a fascinating data point because it makes me wonder, did Eric want white? Did he know by bidding 12 that he would probably get white and that Lukwang Liem would, you know what I mean? There's also that part of the strategy. Maybe you want the white pieces and the time advantage as well.
It's the most similar thing to me is the Final Jeopardy bids, where you're trying to guess what the other person's going to get, and so you're changing your choice based on what you know about the other player. But yeah, it's so uncanny that they all bid within the same time range.
Remind everybody, we are going to focus very much on the Martinez Alexeenko match as well as the Hansen Lukwang Liem match. But it doesn't mean that the other two matchups don't matter. In fact, we could, unfortunately, maybe miss some dramatic moments if those two matchups both end, because Esipenko and Matlikov both have their opponents against the wall. So anyway, here we have this 4 nights with H3. And Danya, your thoughts on what we have on the board?
Yeah, I mean, Jose clearly trying to avoid theory, trying to get sort of a fresh position. And it's been increasingly popular to play these weird moves in the 4 knights position. Whereas earlier, D4 or Bishop B5 was more or less automatic. We've seen H3. We've even seen A3, Bishop B2, A4 I've seen. Somebody play that against me. So it's an interesting structure. Jose has the bishop pair. But obviously, he's damaged his queenside pawn structure, and the E4 pawn is a little bit tender. Now, if it's captured immediately, I don't know exactly what white wants. Maybe knight takes E5 and queen D4.
Yeah, or even queen D5. I think both are possible.
But queen D5, there's knight F6. Oh, you mean after knight takes E5?
Yeah. I'm saying if I think your idea. Let's bring up the analysis board and we'll show it real quick for everyone. If knight takes E4, knight takes E5 takes. I'm saying I think both queen D4 and queen D5 are possible.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I guess black plays queen e7. And after queen takes e4, it's very important that there is no valid discover check with the knight, because the pawn captures and defends the queen in both cases.
Yep.
Exactly.
So that's a really important tactic to be aware of. Wait, is that happening? Oh, it's happening on the board. In fact, Martinez chose queen d4, but it's the same idea.
But I don't like this for white. You know why? Because the center is wide open. The center is wide open. It's going to be hard to win this. Black has no targets. The play is easy. Really, the only chance for Jose is to get Kirill down on the clock and flag him here.
Well, I will also say
this on the board.
Well, I was going to say the other thing it does, assuming he plays bishop e3, is it creates that opposite king, and he does. It creates that opposite side of the board dynamic, which, while I agree with you, I think that black is equal. I think that if you're think about it from Jose's point of view, right? If you get a spicy position, Danya, and both players have to think to get their way out of it, who has the advantage in that game? White does, right? White has a massive advantage on the clock. So I think castles long, creating a bishop pair, attack on the king side versus whatever black does. You know, I get it. I think that this is going to be a trickier position for black to play without a lot of time.
You're absolutely right. I actually didn't see that white could castle queenside. Bishop e3 escaped my mind. I thought white had to play bishop e2. And if white castles short in a position like this, then I think everything I said stays true. But no, I changed my mind. After castles queenside, you do have a double-edged position. And, you know, this is good stuff by Jose. And Kirill needs to get a move on.
By the way, can someone clip where Don, you just said you're right? I'd appreciate that. That was awesome.
I see what you're doing there.
You can say I'm right all night. You can say it all night.
I'm glad I made your day.
Bishop takes c4 and winning a pawn now possible. And in fact, Martinez does it. But look at Alexeenko. Look at that. He creates an opposite code bishop situation of right back at you. He says, I'm going to make a dynamic where black has very good drawing chances. I love this.
And rook e4 intermezzo is also possible, but I like his decision. He gives up a pawn, and white's crippled pawn majority is going to make it impossible to create a passed pawn even in the long run.
There's something about the dynamics of Armageddon when black has draw odds and you know we'll have a decisive result that, to me, I know I made the joke that there is no more exciting event besides sudden death dodgeball. I really mean it. This is so exciting when you, because look at the gamesmanship, Danya. Like, someone has a position slipping from them from a practical point of view. And instead of sitting there and just taking their lumps in a position with less time, what does he do? He does the gamesmanship, the meta play of sacrificing a pawn, knowing that white is clearly better, but now you have the drawing position of an obscure bishop. And I love the dynamic of that, of the game within the game that really only happens in Armageddon.
Totally agree. Yeah, you get different decisions. You get a different style of play from both sides. Of course, the side that needs to win makes uncompromising decisions, cannot go to any position that, you know, even remotely gives drawing chances for the opponent. But here, Jose has no choice. He had to take on c4, and he has to accept the opposite colored bishop position. And he's just going to have to draw this game out, avoid the queen trade, and keep hammering away at black's clock.
Yep. Yeah, fascinating stuff. We have another fascinating Armageddon matchup. I can't wait to see what's going on between Eric Hansen and Laquan Liem. The Canadian had a full point lead, lost, and now we have Armageddon, but he does get white for the second time in a row. Will he do better this time around?
Man, I can't say that I'm in love with his position. It's clearly a Ruy Lopez, but look at how nicely Laquan has positioned his pieces on the queen side. Queen on b6, aiming at f2. His knight coming into f4, and it's impossible to chase that knight away because you're going to drop the h3 pawn if you play g3. So I think black has solved all of his opening problems while keeping plenty of time on the clock.
I agree. His time advantage is almost non-existent if you're Eric Hansen here. It's only a couple minutes. You could see this in a normal game. So I like black's position, although in our last game Eric was clearly better and somehow didn't find it. So you never know what can happen in sudden death dodgeball. I mean Armageddon chess.
I guess the one
this does look good for black.
No, it does. I mean, the bishop on b7 is kind of out of the game. That's, you know, one redeeming factor for white. So maybe a move like rook e3, eventually try to go king h2 and then set up g3. Again, if you're on the white side of an Armageddon game, if you're not better on the board, then the game strategy is just to try to keep all the pieces on the board and keep trying to milk your opponent's clock. That's like all that you can really try to do.
Flagging, as they say, right? Good old-fashioned family fun.
Anybody who does that.
I don't know anyone in this call who's ever flagged an opponent. I do like rook e3. That was a nice call out by you, right? It guards the d3 square, also opens up chances on the third rank. Don't sleep on you know what I want. You know what I want. I'm just saying.
You want knight d3, knight e2?
I want to sacrifice and blow this thing open if I can quickly flip onto the king side. I don't know.
Whoa. That's the intermittent call coming out, I see.
Sacrifice your knights. Who needs them? No, I obviously it's a dubious idea, but the point is if you're looking at it from Hansen's side and the position continues to slip, you might have to do something that while you still have a time advantage on the clock, complicates the position for your opponent and makes them solve it. And I think there is something to that. You know, it's a game for a reason. It's not a perfect science.
Yeah, and Eric doing a good job thus far of preserving the tension. Knight takes e5, by the way. The appeal of that has been raised by the fact that there's a rook on c7, which is in the line of fire of the bishop on a1. But, Danny, after knight e5, de, bishop e5, I'm afraid that there's bishop d6. And the flames of this upstart initiative are immediately extinguished.
Yeah, bishop d6 is a key point. There is no fork on e5 with bishop d6 coming at the end. Eric is back on the clock, but what do you do here? I mean, black's position, if you're not going to do something drastic like that, is like, I played rook c8. I maybe even move the bishop if I'm into that. At some point, I'm looking to shake things up. This feels like such an easier position for white to play. Sorry, for black to play.
This is right up Lek Kwang's alley stylistically. He loves these long maneuvering games. He's a very positional player. And to make matters worse, Eric's time advantage continues to dwindle.
Yep. Okay. Let's back up quickly and just show the positions on the board of the other two games we may not have a chance to look at, because unfortunately, given the dramatic nature of all the set of games in this round, we have Bassem Amin, who, if he loses, could be going home. He looks like he's in a pretty good spot here as black, though, against Esipenko, so we'll see if that can hold up. A draw would give us at least one more game, and a win would tie things up for black here. And the other game, of course, is Vallejo pawns as white. Whoa, in a crazy piece sack of an attack versus Maxim Matlikov.
Ooh, but I don't see this turning out well for him.
I know the eval loves black, but this looks scary. I mean, doubling on the F file. Here comes D4 and E5, and this isn't an easy position for black to play.
No, definitely. This is what you have to do if you have to win 2 games in a row. But after bishop E6 to protect the F7 pawn, the knight on F6 is free to move. And I just feel like white's missing that dark squared bishop, which would be absolutely perfect in a situation like this to attack the H6 pawn.
I love your move, bishop e6. Guards f7. Now you can move knight h5, kick the queen back. Even queen g5 comes in. All right. This is exactly what you said. It's either a genius, desperate play or full tilt poker called, right? They want their playback. All right. Let's go back over to Martinez and Alexeenko. I think that Alexeenko, his plan to go into this opposite code bishop position may prove brilliant if he can hold the draw as black and punch his ticket to the round of 32 in Armageddon style.
Now, he is worse. There's no question that he's worse. And he's worse for 2 reasons. White has control of the default, and the A7, B6, and C5 pawns are all on dark squares. So in an endgame, the possibility of bishop B8, just like vacuuming up those pawns, is always something that black has to worry about. But Kirill doing a great job of getting his queen back into society. And if he can put it on F5, no, black should be able to hold this. I mean,
I was going to point out one other thing that could favor Martinez as well is, even though it's not on the board now, there is the potential of a dark square attack, which is much more likely than anything black could do. So, and now he goes for bishop e5. The queen is very useful here, so there's no concrete threats, but watch out for this idea.
Yeah, queen g3, rook d6, all sorts of shenanigans. And I would consider queen g6 here for Kirill, just to get the queen back, or king h7, which he's played, to get the king off of the g file. He's got 5 minutes, which is an eternity in a position like this.
But again, no increment chess. This is a pure 5 minutes, as they say. If you're Jospin, meaning if you're Jose Martinez, you would love to keep this exact same position on the board, but just take 4 minutes off the clock for each player.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? All you want is a time scramble where your opponent has no increment and therefore a much higher chance of blundering.
And rook d6, by the way, does create some threats of maybe bishop takes g7 and queen takes h6. So you're right. If you're Jose, you do that for the next 3 minutes. You set one move tricks, one move threats. You try to get your opponent, you try to get Kirill to burn clock thinking about those things. And that's exactly what Jose is doing here. By the way, rook c1, Danny, is never really that dangerous because the white king has a nice escape square on g3. So that's not an immediate worry for white.
Right. Makes sense.
Although maybe
now
black still plays that move.
Wow. Is he going to switch over to h4 and renew your idea of take and shake and bake?
Ooh. Oh, but then there's rook h1 and queen g6
Ooh,
with a nasty attack.
Rook h1,
no,
queen g6. Also, the problem if you're Martinez here, Danya, is you have to be so careful not to blunder a queen trade. Like if somehow the king comes to g3 and queen b3 happens, my point is if the ladies come off the board, Alexeenko is dancing in the round of 32. This is going to be a draw.
I would venture to say that white actually has to trade queens here with queen d3. I do not see an alternative. Rook h1 is a lot more dangerous than I initially realized because of the queen g6 follow-up.
Martinez not too happy right now. If you missed it, in absolutely dramatic or heartbreaking fashion, if you're a Jospin fan, he was not able to end Alexeenko's CGC debut. And now we have Armageddon. He was completely winning in the final spot and lost on time, very uncharacteristically. He doesn't look like a happy Jose right now.
No, he does not. And he plays f3, and that is a losing move. Rook e1, I think.
What is the win? It's rook e1? What if rook e1, queen f4? What was
g3?
Oh, if you would play rook e1, queen f4, then rook h1 and queen e1. He missed it.
Oh, it's mate. Oh, that
was the idea.
Oh, and that's a bad decision by Kirill. He should have spent a little bit longer there.
Yeah, let's bring up the analysis board to show everybody what was happening there. That was a moment, and he didn't own it. Thank you, Eminem, Mom Spaghetti. If rook e1, you force queen f4 to keep the bishop guarded, and now you have mate in 2.
Great find by you.
So Alexeenko misses this idea. Dude, rook e1 would have forced queen e1. It was over.
No, over immediately. And that's just poor decision-making by Kirill to not take an additional 10, 15 seconds. You had to have sensed that there's a win in this position. But he should still be able to draw the endgame. Uh-oh. Okay, he's trying to lose this,
but if you're Jospin, your hopes are alive, right? Jose Martinez, at least he's still here.
Oh, but a4, there's rook b4. Oh, I think that's the drawing resource that Kirill is relying on.
Man.
Close.
Alexeenko probably still holds this with the queens off the board, but that was a huge moment. Let's keep that small life position on this game. I'm just going to quickly never mind. We'll quickly flash here. I want to show what's going on with Eric Hansen's game because I think we're going to stay on this Jospin battle. But this is a wild game that is also slowly leaning Black's direction. And now Eric Hansen is way down on the clock. Just wanted to show that. So let's go back to the Jospin battle for now before we. Again, forgive me, fans, for I have sinned. I cannot keep up with all the chess and the dramatic action that is going on. Go to chess.com/events and follow the games yourself while we give the commentary here.
Unforgivable. And Kirill is taking now a long time in this position. I think he's trying to decide between bishop to b3 in order to hunt for the a4 pawn that way. And then he's trying to evaluate rook b4, which is the more direct move. But he needs to get a move on. he has to
Yeah.
realize that even if you get a rook n3 versus rook n3 with a minute left on the clock, Jose's going to flag him.
Yeah, that's
He's
a
gotta
brilliant
move.
point. And let's not be warned, fans. This game might end with parental advisory. This game could end in brutal flaggery, where someone just shamelessly flags their way to several thousand more dollars in the round of 32. So, and I think you're right. Alexeenko is forgetting about that right now. He's forgetting that he has to draw on the board. But just because you get a draw doesn't mean Jaspom's going to offer it. He's not going to offer a draw on a rook and 3 versus rook and 3.
Nope. No, Jose is going to play until Bear Kings this game. And that is the only chance you've got. Obviously, from an evaluation standpoint, this is a dead draw. I mean, it's total drawn. Black pushes the A pawn and should be able to get White's B pawn for his A pawn eventually. I don't see a way for White to avoid that situation.
I see you, chat. What would I do if I had one shot, one opportunity, one moment?
Well, you would lose yourself.
I mean, honestly, I'd probably, mom spaghetti. He's nervous, but on the surface, he looks calm and ready. All right, let's move. Okay, I don't know which game to cover. I want to flash back to the Hansen Lekwang Lien game.
Well,
I think we have
I'm
to.
Curious
real quick.
about. Yeah. Let's check out. Oh no, but Eric is just losing.
Eric's falling apart here. This is
completely falling apart.
Remember, everyone, if you're just tuning in, if we look at the clocks on this game, Hansen was the one who had more time to start this game. He had 15 minutes to 11 minutes and 59 seconds, but now he's down.
You'd be forgiven for thinking, wait, is this right? Is this a typo? No. It's just that Eric simply could not find a way to keep the initiative going. Lekwang should not lose this game. He's also got full control over the key dark squares in the center, which is keeping White's pawn mass immobilized. If Eric could get e5 in, then it would be a game.
Well, he just allowed it.
Apparently the eval bar
he takes and plays e5. You just called it. I think that was a huge mistake by Lekwang Liem.
Yeah, not sure why he allowed e5. There was a million ways to stop it. Very strange decision by the Vietnamese GM. And now Eric, all of a sudden, has some chances again.
By the way, we're now going to stay here. Let's keep the cams here, because for those of you following the other game, what you see is exactly what Danya said. It's a position that should be a draw, but Jaspom is not going to take a draw. He's going to try to flag Alexeenko, who has 2 minutes on the clock. So there's not really much to see on the board. It's just purely whether or not they get some sort of 50 move rule before somebody loses on time. But this game has real spice in it.
I'm keeping an eye on the other game. If something crazy happens, we can always go there, at the drop of a hat. But suddenly, Lekwang, he's taken 45 seconds in this position. D6 is a nasty prospect, and it's a 3-result game.
Well, the moment we joined this game, you called it. Black was in great shape precisely because he had control of the dark squares and e5 wasn't possible. Knight a4 was a big mistake, and we saw the eval bar agree with that. I'm back in thinking Hansen might pull a miracle here and make the Chess Bra fans lose their shirt. Just don't do it on camera, guys, because that's a violation of TOS, and you never know what can happen these days.
Knight a4 was nuts. Really unexplainable decision by Lekwang. Now, he's still okay. I would say that this is a double-edged position. The eval bar is giving equality, and Eric being down 2 minutes on the clock is what might do him in ultimately.
Comeback time, that's what the people want. Okay, Eric has got to just play faster, though. Like, he has to play faster here if there's any chance. D6 is played, but he took too long. He should have just played it.
Yeah, now he's down below 2 minutes, as is Kirill Alexeenko, by the way. Both Kirill and Eric have the same amount of time.
Yeah. By the way, there's a crazy line here. White can actually get away with rook c3, because at the end of everything on f2 with rook c3, White has rook b8 check and d7. Oh, he finds it!
It's played. He finds it. Big decision there. And maybe knight f4 by Lekwang is what he needs to do. He needs all hands on deck here, and all of his pieces acting to their full potential. Yeah, knight f4.
Oh, man, knight f4 is actually... Knight f4 is a heartbreaking move. I was so fascinated by the tactical idea that I saw that you couldn't go for this. I didn't realize that rook c3 is maybe not anything special. In fact, Lekwang Liem just says, yeah, knight f4.
He plays it.
NBD, bro.
And cold-blooded. Cold-blooded response by Eric. Great move. Taking the sting out of knight e2. Now maybe the knight should drop back to e6. protecting the bishop.
Blockade. I can't draw all of a sudden. I'm sorry, everyone.
No, black shouldn't lose this if he's careful.
Wait,
whoa!
Knight
E6?
D3?
No.
What is the move? White's winning here?
Is it? I think
All
it's E6 maybe, but the knight takes F2 check. Oh, it is Queen D5.
Queen D5, and if the knight takes, I think
gosh.
you just move the king, and that's the idea. Yeah, I think that's the
losing
idea.
Control of this game completely.
Let's quickly bring up the analysis board and show it. We might need to keep it on here to show these lines. If takes, the move is this, and the bishop is pinned, and there's D7 coming. Queen D5
Eric
found
might
by
win this.
Eric. Talk about cold-blooded. Is he going to turn this thing around?
He already is. Knight might have to come back to F4 and then to E6. Great decision by LeQuang. I mean, otherwise he was
But
just
Eric
dead.
was ready.
Eric was ready.
He quickly finds a way to grab the pawn.
Yep. And bishop takes F2, allows the rook trade, and then queen E8 picks up the bishop. Black is holding by a thread here. Rook 8. It's a great move, though. Great move by
That's
LeQuang.
a great move. Okay, queen C6, right back at you. You can't play bishop E7. That's huge.
Yep.
If you play rook C8, I guess the queen maybe just backs up. Whoa, he takes F2. Feels so risky.
Why not? It does, but the D8 square is so well contained that knight on E6 is what might ultimately save this game for black. The placement of that knight is optimal. And he's still up a full minute on the clock.
It's a dominant horse, more of a unicorn, of course.
Maybe knight F4, knight E6. Oh my god,
He
rook
plays
takes B6!
B6.
Rook takes B6!
Rook takes B6 is a blunder! Oh my god! If Eric finds it, oh my god, he found it!
Nice.
Rook takes B6!
Oh my god, what a... Unbelievable.
Oh my god, you
Bishop
see
B6,
LeQuang
what
Liam
was
freaking
that?
out in his chair.
I cannot believe
That
what
is
we just
about
saw.
as much
That was not
emotion
over
as
yet.
LeQuang Liam ever shows. It was a subtle shift, but it
Yes.
was real.
But it's not over yet. Black still has some chances here. Eric has to be precise. And he's got
And
45
White only has
seconds.
40 seconds with no increment on the clock, 46.
Queen B1 maybe. But then Rook C1 wins it. No, this is totally winning.
Yeah, it's easily winning
God.
too because the D pawn is so strong.
Last chance
Queen
by
E4
LeQuang
check.
trying to whip up chances against White's king.
Yeah, the threat is bishop F1, everybody. Watch out.
It's not over yet. Bishop
Bishop
D3!
D3. What's the move?
Queen B7.
Why does White still
Queen
winning here?
B7.
What's the move?
Danny, Queen B7. Queen B7, Queen F7, Knight G5.
Queen E1. Production, we can hear you.
Queen B7.
That stuff worked really well. Cool.
Oh, Eric missed it,
Okay.
but he's still going to win.
Okay, no, but Queen E1 worked.
Oh my God.
Queen E1 worked.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. King E8, A6, and the pawn promotes. Or does it?
A8. He's going to play. Oh, 95 guards
That's
B6,
over.
and now A7 is unstoppable.
Yeah, so
He has 10 seconds.
That's it.
Four.
That's it.
That's it.
A7.
He has it.
What?
Is he going to mate him?
It's over. Yeah, 7 seconds. I think he will. Queen D5. Great
7 seconds.
pre-move.
5 seconds. He's got to get a queen.
No, it's
5 seconds.
it's
No
easy.
increment
It's easy.
coming.
Not even
Queen
close.
G5 is
Not
mate.
even close.
Okay.
Oh,
mate.
made in one. There it is.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Eric Hansen. Eric Hansen.
Unbelievable.
A huge sigh of relief. LeQuang Liam exit stage left. But we have one other game to check on. No, we don't. Jose Martinez took down Alexeenko.
He won? He won that?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Wait, how did
Eric Hansen.
Jose win that?
Eric
What
Hansen
is going
wins.
on?
Alexeenko loses.
Oh my God. He lost all
He just lost all his
pawns.
pawns.
Oh my God. This is the most improbable thing I've ever seen. This is out of this world.
By the way,
What the-
talking about
what the
improbable,
F?
we have to show that Esipenko was getting outplayed by Basem Amin, but Black blundered
But
himself
mated
into a
him.
mating net with
It's
rook
all,
to C5.
all of the matches are over. Oh my
Rook to
God.
C5, everyone. The king was trapped, And after rook to a1, the king is mated where he stands in the middle of the freaking board.
What have the players eaten for breakfast today?
Okay, we got to recount here before we exit. So Esipenko eliminates Bassem Amin in crazy fashion by mating the king in the middle of the board. We have, unfortunately, our two guys who are headed home on camera right now. And then Vallejo, despite the piece sack, is unable to deliver anything, offers a draw, which Matlikov mercifully takes. It's a win for black anyway, so he just takes the draw because he's winning the match. And Eric Hansen finishes off in style. Martinez also comes back and wins. So that means the two guys who lost their way into Armageddon redeem themselves and somehow keep their CGC alive. Let's bring up the bracket let's bring up the standings so we can see what just happened here.
But not just that they redeem themselves, the way they did it. What did we just see? Oh my lands. This is crazy. Oh my God. I have no words.
That was absolutely nutty. If every day is like this, I mean, we're going to lose a couple years on our life, but it will have been worth it.
Totally.
But that was absolutely crazy. Jose Martinez moves on to the round of 32 in Armageddon fashion, sending Kirill Alexeenko home. Eric Hansen moves on to the round of 32 in Armageddon fashion, upsetting to many people's eyes and to 66% of the bracket, sending World Blitz champion Laquang Liem home, former. Sam Sevian was dominant, and we'll just say that. And then Matlikov and Esipenko proved the community right. They were both favorites according to all those who filled out their brackets. And ultimately they send Vallejo, pawns, and Bassem Amin home. Danya, I think we're supposed to take a quick break and come back and wrap it up. I have no idea because it all happened so fast. Forgive me for breaking the fourth wall, but I am just sitting here entertained. I feel like Russell Crowe screaming in the middle of the Coliseum. Are you not entertained?
I mean, if this is not keeping you on the edge of your seats, if this isn't making you take time out of your work meetings to watch what just happened, then I don't know what will. That was epic. And just like you, Danny, I need a couple of seconds just to recover from what we just saw.
Well, we're going to do just that. Don't go anywhere, everyone. We will remind you of what you just saw, recap maybe some of the finest moments, and of course set the stage for all that is coming up in the Chess.com Global Championship. The month has only just begun. We are on our way to Toronto. The road began today. Who will punch their ticket to the Final 8 and win a lot of money along the way? Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back and wrap up the day in just a couple moments. We are back here. The day will be coming to an end sooner than planned because so many of the matches came to a close quickly, Danya. But it doesn't mean that the day did not deliver as far as entertaining the fans and definitely entertaining you.
The day more than delivered. We just saw two of the craziest Armageddon games that I have ever seen, and I've seen a lot of Armageddon games. That was absolutely nuts, Danny.
Totally crazy. Checkmate was delivered with just seconds on the clock for Eric Hansen. Jospin, Jose Martinez comes back and wins an improbable obstacle at bishop ending. Let's also talk about the other matchups that were as we bring up our standings again for those who might have just tuning in or want our final thoughts. Let's give quick thoughts on each matchup, starting with Alexeenko headed home against Jose Martinez. Your thoughts on how Jospin got it done, Danya?
Yeah, just a crazy match all around and such a painful one for Kirill. Now, Jospin played incredibly with the black pieces in the main portion. Kirill winning that fourth game on demand in improbable fashion. Jose, all credit to him, putting that game behind him, keeping the wheels turning, even when it seemed like he was about to get crushed in the Armageddon. Just amazing resilience and gumption for Jose.
And for 66% of those who filled out their bracket, that was actually an upset. Most people had Alexeenko. Mm-hmm. So we move on to the next matchup and talk about Lequang Liem and Eric Hansen. For that, it was the opposite. Most people had Lequang Liem moving on, but the Chess Bra gets it done. Also in Armageddon fashion. Also heartbroken moving into Armageddon because he was winning in game 4, but then held on and comes back in that Armageddon game. Let's bring up the bracket actually for Eric Hansen. We can talk about that because it's one of the brackets that I think most people have been circling just because of the star power they're in, right? The Chess Bra moves on. He is the first one to be dancing in the round of 32, but you have Hikaru Nakamura still to play. Mickey Adams, the legend, if you will, from the UK. Amazing stuff. Your quick and final thoughts on Eric Hansen's day.
Well, Eric, is going to hold his head up high. We talked at the very start of the show that he's one of those dark horses who nobody likes to play. He is not a matchup that anybody likes to have. He won that first game against Lequang. He holds on the next two, and somehow, some way, by hook or by crook, he pulls out the Armageddon, even though he was down 4 minutes on the clock at one point in a completely lost position. And guess what? When you win a match like that, you want to try to make it count. So I'm fully expecting Eric to give it his all in the next stage. And I'll be watching that with tremendous interest.
No, I love it. Before we talk about the results of the 3 matchups, we'll quickly show Jose Martinez bracket because we moved past that, the Group D bracket or Fabi's bracket for those looking at the top player and how each bracket shakes out from there. We see Jose Martinez moved on. The Group H bracket, we'll go right to that and show that the 2 players who were playing both moved on. Sam Sevian defeated, as we said, Rasmus Svane. Maxime Matlikov defeated Francisco Vallejo Pons. And the only other matchup of the day, I don't know if we have that or we want to bring up the standings, was, of course, Andrei Esipenko's victory. Kind of convincing, if you will, over Basem Amin. I expected that one. I thought we were going to be commentating on that game, Danya, as we speak, because I had it in the corner of my eye. I was watching it the whole time. Basem Amin was at the very least going to draw that position. He was better as black in a rook ending, yet in crazy fashion got his king checkmated in the middle of the board. And Esipenko, who was favored by 81% of bracket fillers, proves the community right and moves on.
Indeed, no upset there, and really no upset in the Vallejo Matlikov match. As experience playing the RCC, experience in the rapid time control prevails for Maxime Matlikov, who confidently holds his own against Vallejo. What an incredible start to the CGC, Danny. I think I speak for both of us when I say that we could not have envisioned a more entertaining, a more edge of your seat inaugural day of the knockout bracket.
I couldn't agree more. Of course, for those of you maybe tuning in and saying, wait, it's already over, there was also an earlier broadcast with Grandmaster Robert Hess and International Master Lawrence Trent. If you want to just call in sick today and binge some chess, you can back up and watch that 4-hour broadcast as well. Let's remind everybody of the upcoming group matchups that are ahead, and of course the upcoming schedule. whichever one we want to do first. There's a lot more CGC ahead. As Danya said, today was the inaugural day. So why don't we bring up the upcoming CGC matchups that are just around the corner and let everybody know what they can tune into tomorrow if we have that schedule. Okay, we don't have the schedule right now, so we will keep moving on. Okay, well, let's remind everybody of what we're in store for. Here's the CGC knockout phase. This is what the format is that we are watching as of today.
There's
okay.
Well, 64 players total. A couple of them are already knocked out, Danny, in the blink of an eye. That's how quickly it happens.
Yeah.
32
players will move on, obviously, but we still have a lot more ahead. We know who a few of them are after today, but tomorrow there will be action back at it. And if you're wondering what chess you're going to be watching over the coming month, there's going to be a lot of CGC. It's not necessarily every day, but it's going to be almost every day. So keep tuning in. And one of the many talented broadcasters will have the call. And of course, so many games will be going down. Here we have a matchup that's coming up very soon. Geary will be jumping in. I've got that Noterbeck Abdusattorov versus Gelfand matchup just circled. I just cannot wait to see what happens there. Your favorite of the matchups we see on screen?
Same here. Abdusattorov Gelfand. I've been talking about this ever since we recorded that hype video, the matchup of the generations. Yeah. I love seeing the older generation face off against the younger generation. That's like, Carlos Alcaraz against Novak Djokovic. I'm really hoping to see a tennis match like that. And the CGC has given us the possibility to see chess matches that we won't see in any other tournament. Same with Topalov Sidwani. I can't wait for day 2.
Agreed. So, all right, everybody. Well, thanks for being with us. This was a great day, a fun day to kick things off. Day 1 of the Chess.com Global Championship. It delivered, and so many storylines will continue to play out. Congrats to all those who punched their ticket to the round of 32. And for all those looking for the next broadcast, check out our Chess TV schedule and just pay attention. We're live pretty much all the time. So on behalf of my co-host here and the whole team, bringing you the Chess.com Global Championship. Day 1 comes to an end right now, and we will see you tomorrow for day 2, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All done?